You, Cap! Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? Welcome, one and all. A pleasant good evening to you folks. This is the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss. Russell is on his way. He will be here in just a moment. He just had a problem with his coffee maker. I don't know what brand of coffee he's brewing up tonight. We will find out. I don't know if the sweepstakes continue or if it's just a brand that he already has based on your recommendation. But thank you all very, very much for being here. 299 strong to start the evening. That's what we like to see. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Here he is taking his seat. I'll let him back in. There's Russell Davila. Just got to unmute your microphone. Russell, the 304th person to join the stream tonight. Big crowd to start the show here. Very encouraging to see you all here this evening, because as Russ and I were saying, and Russ, you got to unmute your microphone. As Russ and I were saying earlier, we don't really have much clickbaity headlines, right? We're sort of defying all those people that say, oh, well, this is just a gossipy audience for a gossip channel. We have a very highbrow show for you guys tonight.
Old-time hockey.
Old-time hockey. That's right. That's right, indeed. But thank you for being here. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Wherever you are, we want to give a shout out to our friend and audience member, Karen, sitting here in the ER wondering how much this is costing. I'm sorry to hear that, Karen. I hope that you're all right and hope that, the bill is manageable, but glad we can keep you company during your ER visit. I know they can take a while, so hope everything is all right with you, Karen. Big shout out to you, sending you as many good vibes as two miserable New York leftist Jews can muster. We will do our best. Positive vibes are not our strong suit, but we will try our best.
It's really not our forte.
Go watch Crystal Kyle and Friends. They're more upbeat than us.
They're definitely. Well, she's a Marianne.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Got that whole thing going on. Yeah, I always mention to people when I pass the Marble Collegiate Church, they got a statue of Norman Vincent Peale outside. And he wrote arguably the first pop psychology book, The Power of Positive Thinking. He was the pastor there. Nixon was a big fan of his.
Okay.
Not someone we associate with positive thinking.
No.
He officiated at his daughter's wedding in the White House.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I didn't know that. Let's hear. Oh, Rosie just became a new member. Beautiful.
I told you the Norman Vincent Peale story would bring them in.
Right, hooked him.
You told me I was crazy.
And Rosie became a patron too. You're on our patron scroll as well. So thank you very much. We'll get to super chats, folks. Tip jar is out, and we have a program note before we get started. So this coming Thursday, the 29th, is our final Thursday evening live stream, our final regularly scheduled Thursday evening live stream. I'm sure there will be things that come up that prompt Thursday night live streams in the future, but starting in July, we are switching to 3 streams per week. So after this Thursday, our new schedule will be Sunday at 7 p.m., just like now, Wednesday at 8 p.m., and then Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. This Thursday, we are very excited to welcome friend of the show, Craig Pasta Jardula from the Convo Couch. Many of you RFK stands will be happy to know that
The
we
man
are
with the dirtiest name in the business.
Yeah, Pasta Jardula, indeed. We're really looking forward to hosting him.
That's not a name. That's a sex act.
Is that well? You have to ask him.
What's a Jardula? I gotta ask him. What's a Jardula?
Ask him what inspired.
Do you have to be flexible to do a Jardula?
I don't know. He looks like he's in decent enough shape. He could probably pull it off.
Probably. Yeah.
But we're going to be with Pasta on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Now, our RFK fans in the audience will be happy to know that, keeping true to our word, we are reading his book. We're part of the way through the book now. We will have the entire book read by Thursday. We feel like we cannot really discuss that book in a way that will do justice to the conversation without doing that show on Rumble, where we are censor-proofed. And so what Thursday will be is a two-part show. We will begin the show here at 8 p.m. on YouTube. We'll do probably about an hour, and then we will switch streams to do a sort of overtime post-game type thing, open to the public. It's not paywalled, not Patreon only. That'll be over on Rumble and Rockfin starting. We're going to probably put a tentative time at 9:15. We'll probably stop here at 9. By the time we get the other stream up and running, it'll be a quarter after. So that'll be a two-parter. That'll be a lot of fun. And then Friday, June 30th, that will be our
leave East Berlin for West Berlin.
For West Berlin, right. We hop the wall over to Rumble. Exactly. Friday, June 30th at 8 p.m. will be our second Patreon and Substack supporter exclusive live stream over on Rumble. So we will have a supporter-only stream that will be this Friday night at 8 p.m. So if you sign up at patreon.com, you get access to this show in terms of call-in access. You get to call into this show. We had a bunch of callers on the last stream. That was a lot of fun. And then you also get 2 supporter-exclusive live streams per month sent to your email inbox. You get a private link to our private Rumble stream, and those are a lot of fun. Our last one was a lot of fun. The one before that, this will be our third, and so we're really very much looking forward to that. So thank you guys all very much for your support. We'll start our first headline in just a moment. Let's take a couple super chats here, though, for good measure. Pat Donahue, thanks for the €10, my friend. Ireland wouldn't be on many people's trajectory, but our government are looking to end our neutrality and join NATO, using the war in Ukraine as a reason to ditch peace for NATO. Shame on them. No, no, no. Well, that would be an example of NATO expanding west, not east. So, all directions. All directions, yeah. Interesting. Nick Riviera, as you should.
You need protection from the Orkney Islands? Like, what are they?
You know what it is? It's those orcas.
Doing over there?
They need protection from the orcas.
From the orcas.
They're sitting ducks out there. Some of those islands especially. Got to watch out.
I mean, that is odd for Ireland psychologically. They've always seen Britain as, perhaps Patrick would contradict me. I don't think so, though. I've worked with many Irish people when I used to drive a carriage. That was like 6th Avenue was all Irish. It was like living in a peasant village. Like 7th Avenue was immigrant Italians and 6th Avenue was immigrant Irish. And yeah, I mean, they saw Europe as like a British thing. Know what I mean? Like all those people that fucked them over centuries. They didn't really want anything to do with that. So that's interesting that they're thinking about that.
Yes, indeed. And I'm sure we will be covering that as that story develops. But let's get into some headlines, shall we, folks? We have a lot to cover tonight. I hope you all have had a good weekend, a relaxing weekend. I hope you kick back and do nothing for a couple days. That's always fun on a hot summer weekend like this. And whenever anybody accuses you of vegging out and being lazy, simply from now on, you could say, hey, I'm a Russian Civil War reenactor. That's what I'm doing. I'm reenacting the Russian Civil War. I think that should be a thing. We have Civil War reenactors here. People should reenact the Russian Civil War. Fairly easy. Doesn't take long. Not much wardrobe involved, Cheap hobby.
Well, I mean, really, we have to do that as kind of a Trojan horse thing. We tell them we're reenacting it, but then we actually do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Let's pick up where we left off last week, folks. Last week, we did a segment that, was pretty tailor-made for this show. I really can't think of a segment more in our wheelhouse than the Titan sub. I mean, that has all the gallows humor and subversive left politics that we would ever want. That was just like a lob ball right down the middle for us. And so I think you guys enjoyed that. It seemed to go pretty well. The clip is doing pretty well. But we have a little sort of epilogue to that story here because emails recently surfaced between Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, and underwater exploration specialist Rob McCallum, who warned him about the fact that this operation he was running was a little shoddy and a little risky, right? So we're going to go to those emails in just a
little
second. Little fakakta here. We're going to go to those emails in just a second, but first, let's just set this up. Here is a brief video of the late Stockton Rush now, describing what a rule breaker he is.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And, you know, I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber.
I don't know if innovator is the first word that comes to people's mind, but perhaps it's not the last. I mean, you are an innovator of sorts, if it's any comfort to you, wherever you are, right?
Fiber and titanium. There's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did. It's pick.
Okay. So.
Oh, right. He's very proud of himself.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well done, sir. Well done. Here are some emails between Rob McCallum and Stockton Rush. This is from March of 2018. Okay. You are wanting to use a prototype unclassed technology in a very hostile place. As much as I appreciate entrepreneurship and innovation, you are potentially putting an entire industry at risk. Stockton replied 4 days later, by the way. This should have been a red flag, right? You should have known he's a flaky bastard if he's not replying to an email like this for 4 days. This is March 26th. He writes back, I know that our engineering focused, innovative approach, as opposed to an existing standards compliance focused design process, flies in the face of the submersible orthodoxy. Flies in the face of the submersible orthodoxy. I didn't know there was submersible orthodoxy. I thought it was just, basic physics and science, but that is the nature of innovation. I have grown tired of industry players who try to use a safety argument to stop innovation and new entrants from entering their small existing market. Yeah, that's what it was. They're trying to bully you out of the space by saying you shouldn't use a Logitech PlayStation knockoff controller.
No, we always talk about Big Sub on this show.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the big sub.
The big sub cartel.
Big sub cartel.
To keep people out of the submersibles industry.
That's RFK's next book, by the way. He's writing a new book on submarines. Yeah. Since Guillermo and I started OceanGate, we have heard the baseless cries of "you are going to kill someone."
Baseless cries. It's a poor choice of words.
We have heard the baseless cries of "you are going to kill someone" way too often. What's that in quotes? I take them as a serious personal insult. Rob writes back, I think you are potentially placing yourself and your clients in a dangerous dynamic. Ironically, in your race to Titanic, you are mirroring that famous catch cry, she is unsinkable. Having dived the Titanic and having stood in a coroner's court as a technical expert, I would be remiss not to bring this to your attention. Wow. Talk about an exchange that ages like a fine wine. Holy shit. That's one of my favorite quotes. I've heard this cry of "you are about to kill
What
someone."
is this safety of which you speak? What are these standards that you're on about? You know what this reminds me of? There's an old movie with Dudley Moore and Peter Cook called Bedazzled. They remade it years later with like Elizabeth Hurley. And Dudley Moore says, "You're a nutter," and he says, "They've said that about some great geniuses like Galileo, Da Vinci." He's like, "They've said it about a lot of nutters too."
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Right. Everybody thinks about Galileo. They don't think about how many fucking morons like this thought they were innovators.
Right, exactly.
Like
Same
for
thing
every
like
Wright brothers, how many people like killed their family pets trying to launch a soapbox off a cliff?
Right, exactly. It's the same thing with anything else. Like, this is why most art films are not very good, right? Because most of the time, that 3-act structure, it makes the best script, right? Every once in a while, you break all the rules and it's great, most people who try to break all the rules fail, right? And, in the world of art house cinema, failing means making a lousy movie. In the world of deep sea exploration, as what was it? It was a Chris Rock bit. There are some areas that require like 100% success rate. Like we was talking about the cops. Well, the cops are mostly good, but we have some bad apples. Well, there are certain industries where you can't have bad apples, like an airline pilot. Right. Well, every once in a while you get a bad apple who crashes into the mountain, right? Same thing here.
Like someone who's going to engineer a sub that's going to take humans 13,000 feet under the ocean.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you can't really have a fail rate. I'm telling you, I mentioned this on the show before, and then somebody wrote an article about it. Virgin Galactic stock started to tank immediately after this happened, man. Because people were like, oh yeah, these people are crazy. Now, of course, they can't do what this guy did. I guess you can just do shit like that. I guess if I want to, tape together a bunch of milk cartons and start selling tickets, I guess I can do that. You can't do that if it's going in the air, but you can do that if it's going in the ocean.
In the ocean, right, exactly, which is a much more hostile space than the air for pretty obvious reasons. That's talk about a story that's just like I said. It's tragic, but there's no story better suited for this show than that. It really isn't. Mr. Fancy Pants, thanks for the $9.99. So FN high right now. Let's do this. Well, congratulations, sir. Glad your weekend's going well. Thank you for the $9.99. As we mentioned, Rosie, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. That is very, very kind of you. Folks, like I said, patron-only stream this Friday. So if you want access to that, sign up patreon.com for just $5 a month or DueDissidence.substack.com. You could start for just $5 a month and get access to those exclusive live streams. Those are a lot of fun. Full-length shows, just like we do here. KD Nick, thanks for the $10. That bookcase is making me very nervous today.
All right.
Okay. So you are a regular here, KD Nick. Is it just making you especially nervous now, or is that something every week? Look,
this is 3/4-inch ply. Like, it's not going anywhere. I am going to fix it because I would. Now I have so many like cherished objects here from India. I have a very nice jade Ganesh here.
Right.
I have my Mahatma. So yeah, like if this fell, I'd actually be losing stuff I care about. So I will fix it.
All right. Well, we will make note when that happens for sure. That'll be a big day in the history of this show. Folks, hit that like button, please. I can't tell how many people like the stream. We got 544 in here. That's a wonderful crowd. Thank you all for being here. Please hit that like button. And if you have not subscribed already, folks, please do hit that subscribe button. All right, moving right along. This is an interesting story. Elizabeth Gilbert. She is an author. Most famously of the hit book Eat, Pray, Love. She was planning on releasing a new book called The Snow Forest, which was actually about Hunter Biden's guest bedroom. That's what he calls his guest bedroom, the Snow Forest. But unfortunately, she set that book in Russia. And even though a lot of the themes seem to be anti-Russian themes, she apparently got a lot of pushback from her lib fans who, ironically probably don't read much else besides, mindless sort of fiction like hers. And so, it didn't really get through to them that perhaps the themes of the book were, classic sort of Western anti-Soviet themes. So she pulled the book. And she put out a video explaining why. Let's take a look.
Hey everybody, it's Liz, and I have an announcement to make. So last week, I announced the upcoming publication of my most recent novel, a book called The Snow Forest, that was set in the middle of Siberia in the middle of the last century and told the story of a group of individuals who made a decision to remove themselves from society, to resist the Soviet government, and to try to defend nature against industrialization.
Again, like what could be more in the libs' wheelhouse than that?
Right.
Like, it's every theme.
Doesn't sound very pro-Russian to me.
Right. Yeah.
Like the only thing missing is a trans commander.
Yeah, right, exactly. Maybe that was the twist at the end. You know, maybe she just didn't want to give it away in case she wants to release it down the road after this whole, World War III thing cools off.
But over the course of this weekend, I have received an enormous, massive outpouring of reactions and responses from my Ukrainian readers, expressing anger, sorrow, disappointment, and pain about the fact that I would choose to release a book into the world right now, any book, no matter what the subject of it is, that is set in Russia. And I want to say that I have heard these messages.
And that is set in Russia. Again, the actual content of the book apparently matters nothing.
Context, anything.
I mean, she just explained to you what the book was about. Hardly pro-Russian propaganda, right?
No, they're fighting the evil empire.
Right.
Reagan would have loved this book.
Exactly.
And read these messages, and I respect them. And as a result, I'm
Are you holding space for them?
And I'm removing the book from its publication schedule. It is not the time for this book to be published. And I do not want to add any harm to a group of people who have already experienced and who are all continuing to experience grievous and extreme harm. So that is the choice that I have made. And I've got other book projects that I'm working on, and I've made a decision to turn my attention to working on those now. So I just wanted to let everybody know that, and thank you very much.
Why don't you just set the book in Iran? Just change the setting. I guess you couldn't call it the snow forest if you said it in Iran.
The sand forest.
Yeah. You'd have to change some plot details.
Yeah.
Pulling a novel. I mean, you know how long, you've written a novel. I have not written a novel. You know how long it takes to write a novel? To just pull it at the last minute?
It's horror, especially because, and, I thought this was me, but anything on writing will tell you this. It's a lot of fun until you get 100 pages in or so, and then it's just a fucking grind. It's just a grind. Like, once that initial excitement of the idea is out of your system, that's why most people never finish a novel, because then it is just work. It's like making a sculpture starting with no clay. You got to make the clay before you can even get to the sculpture. You have to make the clay yourself. I don't know why people have forgotten how to say, shut the fuck up. Why? That seems to have become a lost art, because you understand the social media and the internet have empowered every fucking moron with electricity to express their opinions. You are not under an obligation to listen to them. If you actually were to take polling on the matter, I promise you, it would be a very small minority of Ukrainian people who don't understand that there's nothing offensive about that book. For the 16 people who are so bitter and angry and socially misaligned that they had to go demonstrate their outrage about your clearly anti-Soviet, at the very least, book, and certainly not pro-Russia or celebrating Russia book. And honestly, what if it was? It's set in the last century. Who cares? I'm sure some lib like this did not write a pro-Putin book, right? So, I mean, that would really be the issue, wouldn't it? So why can't you just tell this 16 people with no friends to shut the fuck up? Do you really think it's going to be that big a deal? Like, I understand the media loves stories like this. So if you do, they're going to pretend that there are more people like this than there are in order to get clicks, to ginning up a controversy. But in reality, I just cannot believe, based on my experience of human beings, that there are really a large number of Ukrainians that don't get that this book is not an insult.
I mean, that's the thing. If I know libs and I know social media and I know the world of, cheesy literature, right? I shouldn't say I doubt there were any Ukrainians who wrote her, and protested the book, for every actual Ukrainian with a heartfelt grievance, there were 100 virtue signaling libs who just posted on social media their disdain for the book so that they'd get noticed. Like, that's really what it was.
That's it. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
I doubt you've hurt more than 20 people's feelings with this book, like sincerely.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, that's you really see it on Twitter. You know, Facebook can be shitty too, but Twitter, oh my God, man. What an emotional cesspool that place is.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough out there.
It's giving us an idea of what people have on their minds, and it's not good. It's not good. Believe me, it's not good. It's a culture filled with people who don't feel any sense of purpose or belonging, so they turn to raving on social media about ridiculous things like this to try to get the validation that they lack in the actual world that they actually live in. Like, why don't you work on that? Why don't you put as much time as you put into bothering writers for books that you're never going to fucking read anyway, because they said it in Russia? Why don't you put that into having a life? Why don't you go to meetup.com, go to some meetups or something, speed dating, give it a try, get out of the house a little bit.
Yeah. Get some oxygen,
touch
get
some grass.
vitamin D, right? Exactly. All right. So we have another headline. This is kind of a fun one. Russell, do you want to share the screen on this one? You found this story, kind of a fun upcoming story about the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, France. They have added an exciting new feature to look forward to. Finally,
We've been waiting for this since the 50s. They've been promising us since the Jetsons we were going to have these flying cars, right? Finally, they are unveiling the flying cars. Paris to debut electric flying taxis for visitors at 2024 Olympics, designed by Stockton Rush. Just a dot on the horizon at first. The bug-like and surprisingly quiet electrically powered craft buzzes over Paris and its traffic snarls, treating its doubtless awestruck passenger to privileged vistas of the Eiffel Tower and the city's signature zinc gray rooftops before landing him or her with a gentle downward hover. And thus, if all goes to plan, could a new page in aviation history be written. After years of dreamy and not always credible talk of skies filled with flying, non-polluting electric taxis, the aviation industry is preparing to deliver a future that it says is now just around the corner. Capitalizing on its moment in the global spotlight, the Paris region is planning for a small fleet of electric taxis to operate on multiple routes when it hosts the 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games next summer. Unless aviation regulators in China beat Paris to the punch by greenlighting a pilotless taxi for 2 passengers under development there, that's not safe. The French capital's prospective operator, Volocopter of Germany, could be the first to fly taxis commercially if European regulators give their okay. So they are talking about also bringing these to New York, I think, by 2025. So skipping ahead a little, starting first on existing helicopter routes, quote, we'll continue to scale up using AI, using machine learning to make sure that our airspace can handle it, said Billy Nolan of Archer Aviation, Inc. It aims to start flying between downtown Manhattan and Newark's Liberty Airport in 2025. That's normally a 1-hour train or old-fashioned taxi ride that Archer says its sleek, electric 4-passenger prototype could cover in under 10 minutes. And just a little bit ahead, we'll have hundreds, if not thousands, of eVTOLs. I don't know how you're supposed to say that. How do you think you say that, kid? eVTOLs?
eVTOLs? Yeah, eVTOLs.
eVTOLs. By the time you get to 2028. So, okay. All right. they have finally delivered on every geek nerd's dream since Isaac Asimov, the flying cars and the flying taxis.
Well, let me show you how these work. See, so you got this thing, right, with a USB. Now you plug this into the cigarette lighter adapter. Then you put the SD card in the little port right here, right? And then you take a calculator and you tell it how fast you want to go, right? So you want to go 85 miles an hour. You hit enter. It accelerates to that speed. Make sure the card stays in the port. Very important. And make sure it doesn't come out of the cigarette lighter, because if it slips out, then you crash, right?
Then you crash, right?
Right. So once you have all that, then it's just a matter, they actually have a steering wheel in here. So this only controls the speed. That's why it's very safe, folks, because this only controls acceleration and deceleration. You actually control the actual steering. So it can't miss,
you have to be barefoot, right? Because there's a thing you have to hit with your toes, right?
Yeah.
So if you have toes that cramp, you can't ride this thing.
Yeah, no, and if you drive it with shoes on, it'll cause a very sudden increase in speed, and that can be very dangerous, because there's going to be a lot of these going to the stadium, right? There's taxis. There's a taxi line, right? So you got to be pretty precise. You've got make sure you have 2 extra batteries for your calculator, so that in case it dies,
they don't use an Xbox controller.
No, just a standard calculator.
Okay,
these have been tested more. There's more testing behind just a regular calculator.
Germans.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
They're very orderly.
Exactly.
They're an orderly people.
Yeah, exactly. So that should be great. 2024 Paris Olympic Games, air taxis. Indeed.
Okay. So I'm just gonna say something that did strike me reading this story is I think it's a sign of the times that this innovation is coming out of a European company and not an American one. We were always the ones that would get to things like this first. And, now I was just watching a video the other day. They were asking Europeans about America, and they were like, it's backwards. That's how they see us now. We're a backward country. We're falling behind in science. We're falling behind in math. I mean, it's so contrary to the propaganda we're given. We're given this propaganda that, at worst, we're crushing the people to create these incredible achievements and this incredible wealth, right? But you don't even have that anymore. They're the ones who are coming up with the flying cars, not us.
Yeah, no, they basically assume that we're the country that's going to send you down to the Titanic with the PlayStation controller by some asshole is going to get you killed. That's the assumption now. That's the norm, not the exception.
As more has come out about this story, I mean, not to jump back a segment, but you know what I really don't understand? There was that fucking French guy who was like an experienced Navy guy. What was he thinking? Like, he was not some businessman. He actually knew enough about this because he was friends with James Cameron, who apparently has the rich man's hobby of submersibles. Apparently, this is a whole community of people who, nice work if you can get it. This is their hobby, to play with these submarines. But he knew that guy. So, this guy was tied in. You get the sense with the designers that he wasn't really tied into that community, and they frowned on him if you're to judge it by those emails. But this guy was tied in more, it seems, to the legit community of people who do this without, doing it with a Xbox controller. And so why the fuck did he get in that thing? I don't understand that.
It's crazy. That is just crazy. I'm getting tired of hearing this whole "you're going to kill someone" line. I'm getting tired of hearing that. Folks, if you're watching over on Rumble, hit that subscribe button over on Rumble. We see you there. 64 people in the Rumble chat right now. That's awesome. Next, this Thursday's show, by the way, folks, in case you missed it, with Craig Pasta Jardula. Half of that show will be a Rumble exclusive. We're going to start the show on YouTube, and then we're going to switch streams about an hour in and catch us all on Rumble. But if you're there, thank you very much for being there now. We see you got a decent Rumble crowd in there. Hit that like button over there. Hit that subscribe button. If you have not subscribed to us on Rumble, folks, please go ahead and do so. So we got one more thing we got to get to here before we go into our main segments, but let's do a little super chats first. Roy Astorietta, thanks for the $1.99. Pow, right in the kisser. Pow, right in the kisser. When was that? Was that a line we gave someone at 7:15? It was early on in the show.
See, Keith's too young for that, man. That's the Honeymooners.
No, I know, but was it in reference? No, I know right in the kisser. Yeah.
Oh,
that's
you do?
A classic. Yeah, but I thought it was in reference to something.
Pow, right in the kisser.
Right in the kisser. Yeah. Was it in reference to something we said? Probably at the time. Abiding, thanks for the 99 cents. We appreciate that. Laugh, thanks for the $10. If you can get Fiorella Isabel or Rachel Blevins on, you should. They're great. Yeah, that would be great. I would be totally into that. A separate note, Emma Viglin has an aura that says, I don't know what that phrase means.
You need a good rogering.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's what I figured. I didn't want to be overly vulgar, but you took care of that for me.
When you're not, I am.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Roy asked Rietta, did you guys see Emma on Pim Tool's show? I saw some of it. I saw clips, and look, the reason we're not covering it is because I thought it was pretty much a draw. Like, I thought she handled him pretty well from the clips that I saw. Nothing great, but this is why we covered the Lance thing, because as we said, when we covered the Lance bit, Tim Pool is really not a master debater. I mean, he's not a chess master by any means. So it's kind of difficult to get owned by Tim Pool. Lance did because he took the bait. Emma was just very composed. She answered the questions very succinctly. That's the key when you're debating, is don't talk more than you have to, right? Don't feel like you have to go on about everything. When he said, this is why you don't get invited places. She's like, I really don't care if I get invited places. That was it. She stopped. She didn't. Right. She didn't go. Right.
Well, aren't her parents lawyers?
Yeah. So
that's
maybe you learn
lawyerly behavior.
Right. Exactly.
You don't offer more information than you need to.
Yeah. Whereas, so from what I saw, it was fairly boring. That's why we didn't cover it.
Hey, I'm not one to throw around the term soy boy, and I think there are questions as to whether there is such a thing as a soy boy. But if there is, Lance would be one, I think. So that was probably part of the problem.
Yeah, I've never called someone a soy boy, but I guess
nor have I.
I would.
I mean, if I were to call someone a soy boy, Lance would probably be the first.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we crossed 666 viewers just now. We made it. I was going to say, folks, hit that like button. We're getting close, and we are up over that number.
I was wool gathering.
Right now. Yeah, exactly.
All right, you fucking animals.
All right. See, now you have better hair for that than I do now. Now my hair's too short. All right, we'll do one more, and then we will move on with the show, and we'll get to the rest. Thank you guys very much for the super chats. They're all very, very helpful. We're moving to 3 shows a week. We are able to move to 3 shows a week because of the support we get at Patreon, Substack, and the super chat. So thank you guys very much. Frank Worsham for the $9.99. The interests of those against Biden obviously align with Russia. People should be more open about this. In this context, Russia is playing the role of Iraq or Vietnam. The interest of those against Biden obviously align with Russia. I mean, not necessarily. In certain contexts, they do. I mean, that's what we were talking about, with Jordan a couple weeks ago, when he says that, Max Blumenthal is parroting Russian talking points. I said, well, he's not consciously parroting Russian talking points. If he happens to say things that the Kremlin's also saying because they both, don't think we should be funding Ukraine, then that is what it is. That doesn't imply that they're doing it for that, or that Max is taking cues from the Kremlin, right? So that would be my answer for that. All right, we're going to get into our main segments in just a moment. But first, Russell, something came across your... I don't know what word to use for it. Maybe you can help me out here. Do you want to set this up a
sonar? Something
sonar?
came across my
sonar. No, think of something else. Anyway, set this up, and I'm sure it'll probably come to us.
All right. So no sooner did Marianne lose her second campaign manager in a month than Crystal did a monologue. She went after a couple of other candidates, but she threw in RFK as kind of a fake populist. Now, would she have done that monologue anyway if Marianne weren't her buddy and she weren't backing her and she hadn't staked a lot of what's left of her reputation on her? Maybe, but that's exactly why you don't do that. because you leave open that question of your credibility, because you can't say, is this on Marianne's behalf, or is this what you really think? So it kind of got on my radar.
That's it. Radar.
It got on my radar. So I felt like, they get to do these radars and these monologues dissecting the people they don't like, but nobody ever does a radar on them. So I decided maybe I should do a radar.
All right. So, Russ, what's on your radar?
Campaign season is heating up, and the left independent media space is teeming with outsider candidates vying for attention from smaller outlets, hoping to catch fire with their very online audience of politics junkies and ex-Bernie bros. And while some hosts have done an excellent job maintaining neutrality through this onslaught, serving their audiences with interviews that are both fair and challenging, others have simply decided to latch onto a candidate in the hopes of recreating the Bernie phenomena that turned many of their obscure guy or gal in a basement channels into full-blown money-making enterprises. But if they're doing so well off the afterglow of the Bernie campaigns, why do they need a candidate? Why not just play it down the middle? Well, for a lot of these older channels, their original audiences have long since moved on, either growing tired of their personas, losing interest in politics altogether, or signing up with newer, edgier outlets that better speak to the rage they feel at a system that threw them overboard the second they tried to change it. As a result, the subscriber engagement is often abysmal, pulling in only a fraction of the overall subscribers per video. No viewers means no ad revenue, and no ad revenue means less money. So what's a host with a waning audience to do? Maybe get next to someone with their own large following from outside the scene to draw on. Enter Marianne Williamson, the LA guru with an alleged 30-year history of abusing her staff, something not one of the hosts pumping up her campaign have asked her a single question about, even as they dismiss Dr. Cornel West as a protest candidate and run hit pieces on RFK Jr.
Marianne Williamson got into the race first. She's got politics that are very similar to mine. I have 90%, maybe 95% agreement with her. So ideally, I wish there's one progressive up against Biden, and then progressives can unify behind that progressive to give us the best chance of winning, right? But if it wasn't Marianne Williamson running against Biden, well, then it would have been best case scenario, not only for Cornel West, but for the movement, if he had gotten in first, and then it was him against Biden in a Democratic primary.
Under RFK Jr., billionaires keep their social media playthings, Big Pharma continues to pillage, and at least some of the most damaging and hypocritical aspects of the American war machine march on. Like Trump, however, the right people hate RFK, and so that's enough for many to love him without troubling themselves too much with the details. Although, to be honest, a lot of his online support is from the libertarian and nationalist right, so RFK Jr.'s comfort with billionaires and corporate power won't necessarily be a problem for them.
Meanwhile, everyone from film director Mike Nichols to former U.S. Congressman Paul Hodes, who was Marianne's 2020 New Hampshire campaign chair, have reported behavior from Williams that is both bizarre and, if true, terrifying. Beyond the well-known allegations of throwing her phone at staff members and once pounding on a car door for so long that she eventually had to be taken to the emergency room, there were also accusations that Marianne fired a woman with breast cancer immediately after her surgery, forcing her to fight for her health insurance for months, and telling volunteers at her charity Project Angel Food not to talk to the press before declaring, "You're fucking with my livelihood. I'm famous. I don't need this, damn it." Her behavior was reportedly so extreme and disturbing that Nichols, Stephen Sondheim, and most of the rest of the board of another AIDS charity that Marianne founded in New York went off and formed their own. But what about Oprah, who calls Williams her spiritual advisor? Well, what about her? This is someone who palled around with serial rapist Harvey Weinstein for years. And if you think she didn't know his reputation, I've got a half-assed campaign for president to sell you. Running cover for loathsome people is basically Oprah's job description inside the Hollywood ecosystem, and she's very good at what she does. So why pick this, to borrow a phrase from friend of show Nick Cruz, deeply unserious candidate, when there are so many others on offer, all with their problems to be sure, but none as absurd on the face of it as Marianne? Isn't it uncanny that so many who came to prominence partly by criticizing a Democratic Party that always seemed to be so out of touch with actual voters that it would invariably pump up the least popular candidate on offer, have gotten behind someone that everyone else seems to know is a joke? Marianne may only poll 6 to 11% with registered Democrats, but she polls around 90% with left YouTube commentators, even after the departure of 2 campaign managers in the past month. So is it only to convert a cult of lost New Age souls to their shows, or is there something else at play? I think there is. They say Washington is Hollywood for ugly people. And while you do have Brianna, Crystal, and now DueDissidence bringing the eye candy in this space, political reporters have always been impressed with celebrities. That's why until Michelle Wolf ruined the whole ugly business by calling it out as the incestuous, self-congratulatory circle jerk that it was, the White House Correspondents' Dinner looked like a high school dance where the nerds got to hang out with the cool kids for a night. Sure, it's cool meeting the president and all, but it's not like meeting Tom Cruise. The problem is, no real celebrity or Hollywood insider is going to be caught dead with these dweebs, which means Marianne is as close to Hollywood as they're going to get for right now, as they've shown to the shock and dismay of many of their fans and at the everlasting expense of their credibility. Just like the corporate media shills they claim to despise, they'll take it.
Watching, folks, the 2024 campaign is underway, and we are looking to throw the best election night watch party ever. So please sign up at patreon.com/DueDissidence to help us buy pizza, beer, perhaps even some mozzarella sticks, and perhaps some chicken wings on top of that. Help stick it to corporate media and buy us pizza, beer, mozz sticks, wings, maybe a 2-liter soda or something like that. Thank you very much. All right, that's your radar. That's Russell's radar, everybody.
That's my radar. That's my radar. And Keaton, you know what I was really thinking when I was preparing. See, that's what we needed going into the pitch.
Right, exactly.
What I was really thinking, the tease. We didn't get the tease in there.
Right. We didn't get the
No, I watched that and I said, nobody does that to them. They just get to shit on everyone they don't like. Meanwhile, the person that they are pumping up is the most absurd person in the fucking field.
Right.
And it's uncanny that, what I said is true. She's got no support from the public, but she's got like 90% support from these fucking morons.
Yeah, and if you're doing a segment on fake populists, right?
You're not going to talk. You're not going to talk about Marianne Williamson.
Who could be a faker populist than that?
It was glaring in its absence.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes, the Oprah populist. Yes,
right, exactly.
No, that's not worthy of any focus.
Ellen, you're a member, so we flag some of your chats as super chats because you got that member status there. Keaton, for real, Ukrainians are eat up or eaten up, fed up, or is that a play on the Eat, Pray, Love, with the problems with Liz Gilbert? Pardon me. So are there actual Ukrainians that are upset about that? I stand corrected if that's true. Just if I know patterns,
are they really?
I would doubt it.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'll have to look.
Look, to me, that's like the racist Star Wars fans memes.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure, there are racist everything fans, right? There are racists in society, but how many people were really upset about Asians in Star Wars? How many fucking people does that represent?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I wonder if the Queen song Under Pressure got more play because of the sub thing. Yeah, great tune. Queen and David Bowie. Great tune. Love that one. Rick Bungle, thanks for the $2. Question for Russ. Have you read all those books behind you?
I've read I've been asked that before, not on the show, but by people. I like 80%.
Okay.
About 80%.
All right, good. That's a good ratio. Eat, pray, self-cancel, says Tusker. Yes, indeed. Jessica, you're a member too. Oh my God, my boyfriend's still upset about whatever you guys said on the Titanic emails. Please don't talk about Obama till my headphones are in. I don't think we got any Obama material. I think Obama's getting a pass this evening. But thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, we're not doing any Obama today.
No Obama today. Eat, pray, corner love affairs, says Tusker.
Aaron Mate actually tweeted out something interesting with Obama. So look, I lied. All right, see, you had to bring him up. It's like
he
Candy,
tweeted out some video
like Candyman.
I watched like half of it. I got bored and turned it off.
I mean,
that's the thing. There was a lot of news this week, but most of it was lame, like the Tim Pool, Emma Vigeland thing.
Well, it was basically Obama not thinking through, I think, the implications of what he was saying. He was like, "Yeah, well, we got a problem because there were a lot of people in Ukraine who were Russian speakers and loyal to Russia." You're kind of giving away the game there, Barack.
Right, exactly, yeah. Indeed.
Are you saying the Russians had a point?
Yeah, right, exactly. I saw, like I said, about half of that. I don't remember the whole thing. Go a little out of order here for Nicole, just because I want to clear this up in case there was any confusion. I love you, gentlemen, but I won't do Patreon. If I have to miss the election party, I'll be livid. Please don't just put it there. No, the election parties are on the public feed. We were just joking. Sign up to the Patreon, so we'll buy food. It pays for the food and beverage. But no, obviously, all the election night shows are here. Indeed. Okay, folks. All right, let us get to our main segments. But first, we want to plug our Patreon, even though Nicole says she's not interested. That's all right. Thank you, Nicole, anyway. But you can support this show at patreon.com/DueDissidence. You get call-in access to these shows, as well as access to 2 monthly patron-exclusive live streams. Man, the wind is picking up outside this apartment. I don't know if the storm's rolling in. Hope that doesn't mess with us. It would be great if you could sign up, patreon.com, DueDissidence.substack.com, or if you can hit that join button right under the video screen here, you can support us directly through YouTube. But the Patreon and the Substack really does help foolproof the operation here, as we have said before. Shit. That was my phone. That was my phone. I just knocked it off the table. We are having Craig Pasta-Jardula on the show Thursday. The first half of that show will be here on YouTube. The second half will be over on Rumble. We've told you guys that we are going to start doing some Rumble and Rockfin exclusive streams, and we'll put those videos up on Substack. But, there are certain shows that we just feel better about doing on those alternative platforms, and so we will. So please follow us on as many alternative platforms as you can: Twitter, Rumble, Rockfin, whatever you use. That helps us out a great deal. So we all obviously thank you very much for your support. We'll take a couple more of these super chats. Jack's Page, one less vapid book from this lib is a good thing. Yeah, I wonder if she'll ever publish it. I mean, I can't imagine pulling an entire book over that, just because the amount of work that goes into actually writing a novel. You're going to pull it? You're going to pull the book? I mean, it just seems insane.
I guess she's assuming she's going to publish it later and then drum up a lot of publicity. This is the book that she held in honor of the Ukrainians who now took the peace deal they could have taken a few months into this war.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, who the hell knows? Now it is starting. It is starting to storm out there, folks. I hope my Wi-Fi stays intact. We will see.
No, not by me.
All right, good. Well, Russell.
For New Yorkers, the first day of summer is really the day you put the window unit into your apartment. I just put in the window air conditioner.
Wow, you just put in the air conditioner. Okay.
Today was the first day it was hot enough.
Yeah,
I knew I'd be suffering with the fan.
That's the thing about this new apartment. I got to tell you, folks, call me a PMC all you want. I finally got an apartment with central air, because the difference between having that central air and not this time last year when we were doing these midsummer streams, Russ would know, I would be drenched in sweat halfway through. I'd look like I just played a basketball game when we were done podcasting, because the only units we had were those window units, and they're way too loud to blast the window unit right near the microphone. And so I would have to just turn the heat off and suffer through. So now, thankfully, nice and cool in here. I just hope the internet holds up because it's
No,
really starting to come
people who visit New York, they're always shocked when I take them to the Dakota. It's one of the most exclusive addresses in New York. It's where John Lennon lived and where he was tragically killed outside. And they see the window units. And I say, yeah, man, the building's from 1882.
Yeah, right.
They didn't have any. They didn't have any central air,
No central
and it's
air.
a landmarked building. They can't do what you'd have to do to this building to put it in. So that's very common for these very, very exclusive older buildings to not have any central air, to have these window units hanging out.
Yeah, no, indeed. That's something in New York. Andrew, thanks for the $5 for the Mott sticks. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. We'll make a note of that, not to spend that before election night watch party evening. All right, folks. So let's get into our main subjects of the night here. The first one, of course, we have to talk about this Russian coup that wasn't. So, Friday night, news broke that the Wagner mercenary army, and I put that in quotes because the implication when you call an army a mercenary army is that they're only in it for the money. Well, the Wagner group lost tens of thousands of men for the Russian cause. So they're not exactly hired hands, right? Like they are willing to die for the cause, right? So, but you know, that's how we refer to them in the West as a mercenary. So I just want to put those in a little quote mark.
They're more like the second sons in Game of Thrones.
I would say they're like the Henry Hill of the Russian Defense Ministry. You know, they're not made guys, but they're
not
committed.
made guys, but they're committed to the cause.
Exactly. Right. The Henry Hill Army, led by Yevgeny Prigozhin.
Ever since I can remember, I always wanted to be a mercenary.
I've always wanted to be in the Russian Defense Ministry. Yeah. Anyway, this army, led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, had left Ukraine on Friday night and was on the march, they said, back to Moscow to attempt a coup, an overthrow of the Russian top brass. So here is a video posted to Telegram by Prigozhin expressing his grievances against Kremlin leadership. I'm going to try my best to read this to keep up since we have listeners on audio, and this is obviously not in English, so I will read over this as best I can hear. They were shooting at us. We were shooting at them. And that has been going all these long 8 years, from 2014 to 2022. Sometimes the amount of shelling and exchange of fire rose, and sometimes it decreased. On February 24th, there was nothing extraordinary. Now the Russian Defense Ministry is trying to deceive the president. Come on, pick up the pace. What's with this language here? Why am I saying it faster? The public, and tell them there was insane aggression on the part of Ukraine, and they were going us together with the entire NATO bloc. See, this is fucking me up. Fuck this. I'll record it for the audio later.
И рассказать историю о том, что со стороны Украины была безумная агрессия, и они собирались вместе со всем блоком НАТО на нас напасть. Поэтому спецоперация, так называемая 24 февраля, она была начата совершенно по другим причинам. Для чего была нужна война? Война нужна была для того, чтобы
war was needed so a handful of scumbags could have a blast and get PR attention showing how strong the army is. So that Sergei Shoigu could become a marshal, and that decree was ready by then, so he can get a second hero star. Because he really wanted to become a part of Russian history as a great Tuva national, twice hero of Russia. So he's basically calling Shoigu a grifter.
And they marshaled during peacetime. The war was needed not in order to return the Russian citizens to our bosom,
Right. So what he's basically saying is that this was a vanity project of the Russian top brass, and it was not really needed, really undermining what the official narrative has been as reason for the war, including, as he says here, it was not in order to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. He's really going at Vladimir Putin pretty hard here. What this is an example of, folks, is the kind of unproductive left infighting that we really hate to see.
It was really needed for one star with additional embroidery so that one mentally sick man could look good on a coffin pillow.
Yeah,
this guy's got away with words.
No, this guy.
I haven't heard a monologue this rich since Deadwood, probably.
I would say it's in the Russian era. This is like Chekhov, right?
Она была нужна ради одной звезды с дополнительной вышивкой по периметру, чтобы один человек, психически больной, когда ляжет в гроб.
It is a language with a lot of syllables, I'll say that.
Oh, yeah. No, it takes a while to get these points out.
Шойгу живет по
Shoigu lives by the principle that a lie must be horrific for people to believe it. That's when the lies come.
Две реальности на земле сейчас.
Two different realities are created. On the ground right now, today, the Russian army is retreating from the... You're going to have to read that. The Ukrainian forces are pushing the Russian army out. We're wallowing with blood. Nobody is giving us any resources.
So this has been a critique of Putin from the beginning. That, I mean, we talk about a war of attrition, right? Just willing to sacrifice body after body after body.
You keep pausing on the best lines. There's no control. There is still hysteria in which the head of general staff, after a glass of vodka, is squealing like a fishwife.
Squealing a fishwife, and he goes on.
В которых начальник генштаба после стакана водки визжит как баба базарная, как свинья.
Like a pig into the phone receiver ordering to take back the positions, and all a commander can say is it's been taken back, and draw a red line on the map marking several kilometers further north than it really is today. All right, so we get the picture, right? He's basically calling out the Russian leadership as not only having fought the war under false pretenses, but also being very careless with the lives of their men and of their troops. In addition to these points... Yeah, right, exactly. In addition to these points, Prigozhin also claimed that the Russians fired on them from the rear. So he was claiming friendly fire from the Russian army. He was also, and here's the key point that I think a lot of this was about, he was also refusing to sign a contract that would turn the Wagner army over to the Russian Ministry of Defense, which would essentially fold the unit into the official Russian military. And he didn't want to do that, probably because I would imagine the pay is worse, but also if he were actually included in the official Russian ranks, he wouldn't be able to say things like this, right? He wouldn't have the autonomy to criticize the top brass in the way he feels that they need to be called out in this way. So, as news of chaos within Russia's borders spread, because he decided on a whim, hey, let's just go back to Moscow. What's that?
That's always the danger of mercenaries.
Right, yeah, exactly. There, right. That's what you got to watch out for.
You never know. They're with you while you're paying them, but if they get pissed off, they don't have that nationalistic devotion to the state, they can turn on you.
At least not in a formal capacity. And it seems to me like that dispute was driving a lot of this, especially considering how it panned out in the end. All right. So he decides, he's not going to take this shit anymore. He turns back around out of Ukraine. And as news of this chaos within Russia's borders spread, the media went to work building the narrative that Putin himself was actually under a legitimate threat of losing his country. So we're going to see people from all over the Twitter spectrum here chime in on the news, getting their little schadenfreude in for the moment. Here's Harry Sisson. I'm really glad we have President Biden in office right now. Trump would be on the phone consoling Putin. So he was happy about the news. Here's Ed Krasenstein. a sort of sober version of Harry Sisson, I would imagine, slightly older. If Putin and the Kremlin falls, Ukraine prevails, and political prisoners like Navalny are freed, will all of the people who were against spending money to Ukraine change their tune? Defeating Putin as he tried to take over an ally without sending U.S. troops or losing a single U.S. life would likely go down in history as one of the best military strategies in American history. Now, I mean, I'm sorry. You talk about Western chauvinism. One of the reasons why I mentioned the Wagner Army, they were just in the news a few weeks ago. All the libs hated them more than they did when they turned on Putin. They took the city of Bakhmut. They called that city the meat grinder. That was the front line of the war. During the peak of the fighting, the average life expectancy in Bakhmut was 14 minutes on the front line of the war. The Wagner army lost at least 20,000 in that city. Some estimates have put it as high as 35,000. Ukrainians lost at least 60,000 people. Estimates go as high as 80,000 people. So for this little punk to be like, well, to defend an ally and not cost a single U.S. life. I mean, I'm sorry, there is not a tinge. That is Western chauvinism. It's what? Ukrainian and Russian lives are not worth the same as U.S. lives? You're talking about a death toll here that is really not fathomable to most people who grew up when, say, I did and have not read a history book since Barack Obama took office, right? Who thought that that's it, our work is done here. Because even the war in Iraq, right? And that ended up killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people over the years. But the original sort of shock and awe phase of that war killed about 10,000 Iraqis. And I think, the U.S. troop casualties were about 5,000 over a course of many, many years. So you look at the death toll already. This war is, 16 months old? Bakhmut alone, you have a death toll well north of 100,000. North of 100,000.
I would love to know the numbers. Is this the deadliest war since World War II in the West? Probably.
It would have to be. It would have to be. Yeah, by a long ways. And so you're talking about a really dire and severe situation. And, the guy, we haven't lost a single U.S. troop. We haven't sent a single U.S. troop. And isn't that wonderful? No, it's not wonderful. You're talking about one city, a death toll being over 100,000 people, 14 months in. And it doesn't look like, if our government has its way, this is anywhere near over. Nowhere near over. Especially when you consider how this quote-unquote coup or civil war panned out. So here's Never Trump Republican Joe Walsh. 3 thoughts this morning. Okay, so this was yesterday morning, before the coup was called off. 1, Putin's invasion of Ukraine last year will go down in history as one of the biggest fuck-ups and biggest miscalculations ever made by a major figure on the world stage. Look at how fucking dumb these people are. After an hour of headlines that this rogue fucking nut job thinks he's going to take over the government, after an hour of that, these people are already, this settles it. Joe Biden is the most brilliant geopolitical strategist in the history of the United States. How fucking dumb do you have to be? How lazy do you have to be? I guess this is the story now, right?
This is kind of a running theme in tonight's show. It happens sometimes. All of this is about interjecting yourself into the story of the day, because anyone who paused for a second would know this is a very fluid situation, and any kind of spiking the ball that you do today could very well make you look like an idiot tomorrow. Especially this is Russia we're talking about. This is classic Russian, people coming over the Asian steppe with maces, fighting each other kind of shit. You don't know how this is going to go down. These people live for what a lot of commentators in the right space will call the latest thing, right? They do a lot of memes of, I am fully for the latest thing.
That's exactly what this
That's all this is, right? It was the thing of the day. You have fucking, Sulu's like the fucking king of the morons over there, jumping on it right away. Well, how's Putin feeling now?
Now.
You know?
I mean, you're not even talking days. You're talking hours. You're talking a couple hours. This was in the news, and already, well, I guess the course of history has changed, right?
Well,
we haven't even gotten to the best.
Because they're only motivated by virtue signaling, and there is no consequence for being wrong because they're wrong with all the people who are also virtue signaling, and those are the only people they talk to.
Right. Exactly. So here's a couple more points of his. Okay, Putin's invasion was one of the biggest fuck-ups and biggest miscalculations ever by a figure on the world stage. 2, Joe Biden's response to Putin's invasion, Biden's strong defense of Ukraine, and Biden's leadership in assembling a unified worldwide coalition to stand with Ukraine and against Russia will go down in history as one of the greatest defenses of freedom and sovereignty ever put together on the world stage. And 3, of course, the world is so fortunate that Trump lost in 2020. All right, now we have Alyssa Slotkin, a Democratic representative here. Breathtaking events in Russia, and my team and I have been up most of the night watching history unfold. While we're still watching events in real time, a few things are clear. First, Russians fighting Russians on Russian soil, which we haven't seen since the 1991 coup attempt. Like I said, unfortunate left infighting, folks. Really sad to see. Is born directly from Russia's failures in Ukraine. Military forces with clear plans, chain of command, and operational success don't devolve into violence against themselves. That's fair enough. Even Scott Ritter said that, that this is not a good look. But we'll get to how this was actually dealt with. So this is the clearest public confirmation of the folly of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And remember, Wagner, a private military force, was brought into Ukraine and put on the front lines because of the failures of Russia's regular military. Well, that's actually not really true, especially since Wagner did take the city of Bakhmut. This would be the equivalent of the U.S. military depending on an armed defense contractor, and then that contractor turning on U.S. leadership and marching to D.C. Don't get any ideas. What was it? Blackwater?
BlackRock.
The weakness of the once formidable Russian military is
no, it's Blackwater.
Stunning. Yeah, right. Yeah, that was the book.
Blackwater. Yeah.
This isn't just a problem for Putin inside Russia. It calls into question whether Russia can withstand Ukraine's summer offensive. Wagner led some of the small military victories in Ukraine, so this is a chance for Ukraine's forces to further liberate their land. Stay tuned. And then she goes on to say, now remember, the Wagner group are not our friends either, but I don't have to read that whole thread. I do want to read this because this was the moment when I realized that, wait a minute, this story is likely bullshit. Ann Applebaum, just rabid, Russiagator, big Ukraine person. I'm surprised she doesn't have the flag in her bio there. Is Putin facing his Tsar Nicholas II moment? She put out a whole article in the Atlantic magazine. Russia slides into civil war. As soon as I saw her name on the byline, I'm like, okay, I'll bet this narrative is refuted handily pretty soon. I didn't know it would be as soon as it was, but that was the moment when I realized, oh, okay, so this is probably not actually going to happen.
That's what you texted me. Because at first I was like, all right, well, maybe Putin's support is more apparent than real. It wouldn't really surprise me, and it still wouldn't, to be honest. But the way I'm reading this, insofar as we're able to decipher what's going on over there, Putin, whatever they want to tell you about him, he's not crazy and he's not stupid. He outplayed this guy. Whatever went on behind the scenes there, he outmaneuvered him. That's what I think. But yeah, Keaton texted me when we were planning on covering it. It was like, I think a lot of the coverage on this is bullshit. And within like an hour, they were like, yep, coup's over.
Coup's over. So here's the last guy who got punked on this. Literally, like the last guy is friend of the show, Kyle Kulinski. He posted a video from his hotel room before attending a wedding. Breaking coup attempt in Russia. Minutes later, and I mean minutes later, news broke that the coup had been called off. Prigozhin and the Kremlin had reached a deal, and so there we have the result. Literally an hour after he dropped that from the same hotel room, obviously, because they're going to the same wedding. Crystal breaking, Wagner calls off the Putin coup. So the details of this arrangement are as follows, as reported by the Washington Post here. The agreement for Prigozhin's forces to turn around was brokered by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, who spoke with Putin before negotiating with Prigozhin, according, to state-owned news agency Belta and Peskov, who is the spokesperson for the Russian Defense Ministry. Wagner forces that did not join. See, here's the thing. This is what I think is the real crux of the deal here. And obviously, we don't know entirely. This story is still less than 48 hours old, right? We still don't know exactly all the details and all of what motivated every decision. But Wagner forces that did not join what Putin had called a rebellion will not be prosecuted and will join the Russian Defense Ministry. Earlier, Putin had threatened punishment for those who joined the move on Moscow. So he put out a call for Prigozhin's arrest and then negotiated an exile. So in that sense, I think both Prigozhin and Putin got most of what they wanted. Putin wanted Wagner folded into his army formally, and Prigozhin obviously did not want that. And so in that sense, they both kind of got their way, right? The leader gets to go live his life, and Putin gets now formal control of that group. And that's honestly what I think this was about. That seems to be the dispute. This was basically a contract dispute at the end of the day. Prigozhin had called for Russians to join Wagner's campaign late on Friday after claiming that a Wagner camp in Ukraine had been attacked from the rear, as I mentioned earlier, by Russia's military. He also said he would march on Moscow unless he could confront his enemies in Russia's Ministry of Defense. The Defense Ministry denied the accusations in a Telegram post, and state media suggested that video of that strike had been staged. In other words, they're calling him a liar, which, look, he might be telling the truth. I mean, this may have been Putin's way of forcing him out. I mean, that is how it worked out, right? Now, we don't know that. Obviously, it was a high-risk way of doing that. Right. But, that is the result he ultimately wanted. He ultimately did get the result he wanted, and Prigozhin seems to have gotten that too. The Russian forces launched one of their biggest overnight missile barrages in weeks against Ukrainian cities early Saturday morning, firing about 51 cruise missiles and 2 self-destructing drones, Ukraine's Air Force said in a Telegram post. Look, the one thing that the media has got right about this, and it's tragic and it's awful, they did say that this does make Putin and the Russian army more dangerous. It makes them a more lethal force, which it does, which is bad news for everybody who wants the killing to stop, as Donald Trump said. We want people to stop dying. The death toll here is completely out of control. And for every time a thing like this happens, what does Russia always do? They always double down on their missile launches, on their offenses inside Ukraine. And that just leads to more death, leads to more hell. And to me, the number that jumps out at me, if you look at the death toll in Bakhmut, it's just staggering. It's absolutely staggering. And that was part of what the Wagner Group's complaints were, and that's what we've been hearing about Putin the whole time, is that he's throwing everything he has at this, and without much concern. What did you say? What was it? 4 or 5 men to a rifle is how they used to fight in the trenches. That's how the Russians used to fight. You would 5 men to a rifle. The assumption
during World War II,
during World War II, right? What they lose 27 million people in that war? Just insane. I mean, unbelievable.
With the civilians.
Right.
Yeah, no, they would send them out with the understanding when this guy gets shot, you pick up the rifle.
You pick up the rifle. Right. So for every 5 guys, you'd have 1 gun. The assumption was we're going to go through all 5 of these guys to fire off as many rounds from this gun as we can.
Actually, one of my favorite World War II stories is Hitler raving about how Stalin was fighting the war. And, this is Adolf Hitler. And according to historians, he was raving at his staff. He must be some manner of monster or beast to fight a war this way. Hitler was horrified that Stalin was fighting like this. I said it the whole time. You had all of these chicken hawks talking up hostilities with Russia. Okay, you happy now? You happy now? These are not people you want to fuck with, man. These are people who burned down their own capital to deny Napoleon any place to winter. They kept drawing him into Russia. Every time he got ready to fight, they'd withdraw. And he'd come in and they'd withdraw. They were just waiting for winter. He gets to Moscow around winter, they burn it down and attack him all the way out. Napoleon left Russia, I think, with 500 men.
Yeah.
By the time they were done with him. This is how the Russians have always been. They will not surrender. So anyone thinking the Russians are going to give up, they're going to get demoralized, history would not suggest that. That is not the precedent in their national character. Their national character has always been that they are willing to put up with incredible hardships that other peoples would probably surrender in the face of.
Right. Yeah. And, that ought to have informed people's attitudes towards this coup or civil war, or whatever they wanted to call it, as it was unfolding. But no, you just had this whole episode was like the entire Russiagate narrative timeline condensed into like 12 hours, right? People believing one thing and then jumping on it and double down, and all these articles. They had all these articles ready to go in like 10 hours. I don't know how. Okay, boom, boom, boom. This is it. It's over, right?
This is what happens in an atmosphere where there are no consequences for being wrong.
Well, right, exactly. Right.
That's why Bill Kristol is like a senior statesman.
I can't believe that Ann Applebaum article is still up. Like, why wouldn't they take it down? Like, don't they think, hey, this is defunct now? Like, this is expired now? It's not good for people to read this now?
The audience for that will never call them out on it.
Right. They'll just say, oh, what could have been. Right. I mean, that article had like a shelf life of literally like 3 hours. Like, it came out that morning, and by midday, it was over. It was
not. It's not political journalism. It's brain candy.
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. This is good news that people will like. So let's make some money off it real quick.
Oh, you see that? You see
wrong.
that? Everybody was doubting Joe, but he called it right back in the Ukrainians.
Right. Exactly. That was the whole point of it. That's the whole point of an episode.
And then the next day, it's so Orwellian, the way that these people just follow every twist in the news. And just like Orwell's premised citizenry of Oceania, they are able to do that doublethink thing where whatever they're not supposed to remember, it goes down the memory hole. They really have been conditioned to be able to forget what they're not supposed to remember.
Of course. Absolutely. All right, let's take some super chats here, and then we will move on to our second main segment of the evening. Tusker, thanks for the $5. Appreciate that. Really enjoyed Russell's Radar. Thank you. That was a good one. I dug that myself. Franklin, thanks to the $4.99. According to neurologists, the sun victims imploded before their brains could register what happened. So technically, they don't know they died. What sun victims? You're talking about the sub. Not sub.
Oh, the sub.
B is right next to N. That was a typo. Is that true?
Well, not according to James Cameron.
Yeah, I haven't heard what James Cameron says.
He says they had sensors on the inside of the sub that would have warned. Okay, you want another funny aspect of this? They had sensors on the inside of the sub that would warn you if the hull was being compromised. But one of the things that they were arguing with the CEO about was by the time those sensors are going off, it's too late. You're not going to be able to save yourself. So what good are they?
Right. Yeah, no.
So he's saying they probably knew, because he's saying, according to members in the sub community and word they've gotten from the Navy, they seem to have known they were in trouble because they dropped their ascent weights. Right. So they were trying to go up, according to what he was saying. So those sensors probably went off.
I mean, it's what an amazing story. I feel like we should start every show with a new development from that story, just to keep it running. Indeed. Apocalyptic Optimist, thanks for the $4.99. Best radar I've seen in a long time. Look at that. The reviews are in. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Or ma'am, whoever you are.
We're ahead. I told you, you're gonna be a star.
You're gonna be a star. Got a new coffee maker and tried San Francisco Bay. Christ, had to get some brand that shall not be named because it's so good. Looking for something else, though. You're talking about a brand that shall not be named. I don't know. You're either talking about Javalia, because you know Russell doesn't like Javalia, or you're talking about Starbucks, because we're not allowed to go to Starbucks.
Oh, you must be talking about Starbucks, yeah.
Maybe. Thank you for the $12.
Oh, so you didn't like San Francisco Bay?
Didn't like it?
You didn't like it?
They have it at my store. I'll pick it up, actually. I'll try it. See what all the fuss is about.
It was the closest to the Starbucks that I've found so far.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just saw a funny super chat that's down the line. I'll put it now because we just did that segment after Courtney's. Thank you, Courtney. When you're a group that can be paid off, you will be paid off. NATO pays them to revolt, and Putin pays them double to walk away. That's another theory. Some
people have been saying that.
Yeah, is that they were put up to it. The only thing that makes me a little hesitant to buy that is because the plan, like let's say so they were paid off to what? To go and take over the Russian government? Like if that were their motive, wouldn't they know what a folly that is? Like how are they going to get back to Moscow?
Only that,
they got back to that city. The name of it's flying out of my head. The name of the city that they took over temporarily, or not took over, but they stationed themselves in. Rostov. That's right. Yes, I knew it was an R.
I know that from playing Civilization.
There you go. Came in handy. They thought they were going to get back to Moscow. They rely on the Russian military for weapons, ammunition, logistics, intelligence, coordination, navigation. They thought they were going to be able to just make it back to the capital unencumbered, that they weren't going to get hit, because one of the things is, the Russian army didn't want to send their military into Ukraine to do the fighting that the Wagner Group was willing to do for them. But on their own soil, they would, of course, have deployed forces. So, who's to say you'd have made it to Moscow? And then once you get to Moscow, what's going to happen? Carl Zah posted a thing from his Twitter, because he's apparently in Moscow now, happens to be there, I guess on vacation or something. And he posted a couple of videos on Twitter from his hotel. Tourists walking around the square, like nothing was happening. It didn't look like a city under siege. That was the first hint that I got. That all right, they're not as panicked as the media says they are.
Tara sent out some stuff like that too.
Yeah, Tara sent a video like that, and then when I saw the Applebaum piece, that was just like, okay, now I'm like, all right, now this is 99% gonna evaporate pretty quickly.
I mean,
I still didn't think it would evaporate in an hour. I mean, I was still surprised.
No, I was surprised when you told me that.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, frankly, a lot of times these things come down to reading people. That guy cursing about pigs and fishwives, he wasn't doing that for money. I'm sorry, that motherfucker was pissed.
Yeah, he strikes me as a believer. He does, which is why I always thought that, the mercenary label wasn't exactly fair in that case. But I like this one. Advice to Prigozhin, don't drink the tea. Yeah, exactly.
That guy's definitely going to need a food taster for the rest of his life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, indeed. All right. So we'll take some more super chats in a little while. Here, let's do this one from Courtney because it's on the topic. Thanks again for the $5, Courtney. If Putin knew he was talking to NATO, he would have shot and take them out. Friendly fire. Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting theory, too, that perhaps he had some knowledge that they were going to turn, and that's why he fired on them. Again, it could have been a way of getting him out and bringing the Wagner Group under his control without looking like he was giving in to the demand that they remain sort of independent, right? Because how else would you do that, right? So we will find out. I mean, there's a lot of theories out there, and I'm assuming the truth will become known sooner or later. Then again, maybe it won't.
Maybe it won't.
We're on a need-to-know basis, us peasants, right? They don't tell us everything. They don't tell us everything, that's for sure.
No, they do not.
Okay, so this next segment is a segment about some new bombshell developments from East Palestine, Ohio. And we are using, as our source materials here, some of the findings, some exclusive materials given to Status COUP. You all know who runs that outfit, I'm sure. So, Russell, do you want to say a word or two before we start this?
So I hear some people have some issues with Jordan Sheridan. So this is my and I have some issues with some of the back and forth he's had with some of our friends. However,
as we made clear
when we talked,
we did our best.
We have, as I've mentioned on the show, we've continued to speak off air. And, we've continued to have a lot of the conversation that we had when he was on the show. And, I think we're kind of making some headway, we'll see. But this is really the bottom line. There's nobody really doing what Jordan is doing. He's going out and breaking these stories in East Palestine long after everybody else has moved on and stopped paying attention to it. He's covering another story I'd like to draw focus to about something that's going on in Kalamazoo with the mostly African-American population in this area being poisoned. These are things that if we are serious in this space about what we're doing, you want to go tell somebody in East Palestine we're not going to cover this because Jordan said some shit on Twitter we don't like? Like, you want to go tell those people that?
Right.
If we're serious about what we're doing, if this is more than a bitch fest, if this is actually a meaningful political project, it doesn't matter what you think about what Jordan said about people at Gray Zone. It really doesn't matter. The question is he doing good reporting on a subject that you, in terms of your political project and your mission, you want to draw attention to? And he is. And frankly, there is nobody else doing what he's doing. Now, I'm not saying nobody would, but there's nobody who has both the skills as an investigative reporter that he has, the experience that he has, and the resources that he has.
Right.
So for me, and this is something I would love to see, honestly, I said right to him when he was on the show, yeah, man, people start shit, but so does he. And it's a distraction from his work. And I wish he wouldn't do that, because particularly people in this space, people at least among who we associate with, are the most likely people to platform the kinds of stories he's reporting on. And it is a fucking shame. It is a shame for all of these channels, because of all this personal stuff, to feel like they can't platform Jordan when the people who are suffering for that choice are the people of Kalamazoo, the people of East Palestine. Those are the people who pay for that choice. You're not hurting him. You're not hurting Jordan. He's doing his thing, man. He's going to keep doing his thing as far as I can tell. He has his supporters that are going to keep him going. So we in this space who really want to focus on these kinds of stories, I'm hoping that Jordan will give a little bit, and that maybe we can give a little bit, and maybe we can draw on this tremendous resource, because, I know some people say he's exploiting these people that he's, listen. Look at our view counts, all right? When we do a piece about Kyle said shit about shit and this shit and blah, 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 thousands of views, right? We do something about Native Americans in the Supreme Court. What did that do? 300?
A few hundred, yeah.
That did
even COP City, which is more of a hot button issue, which we covered.
Right. That didn't do anything.
Almost nothing. Even the Pentagon budget, even the Pentagon $6.2 billion thing, not much, right?
Yes. So look, I think Jordan picks fights he shouldn't pick. I think he's got takes that I don't agree with. But at the end of the day, he's not a stupid fucking guy. I don't think he's covering these things because he hasn't figured out that it's not the way to make money in this space. He legitimately cares about these issues. When I told him, look, man, you know, maybe we'll have you on the show in the future, but I don't want to distract from the story because so many people have such strong feelings. He told me, yo, don't worry about me. I don't want you to not cover that this company nuked this town because of things like that. Right. So that's not somebody who's trying to get aggrandizement or promote themselves. Like I said, man, there's personal stuff there that, you know, I hope at some point can get resolved, because our channel and the channels we're affiliated with are the people most likely to platform these issues. So I hope we can get past that and really
the real
draw
bottom line
on this reporting.
I mean, look, that's the real bottom line in this context, right? Like, in this context, what are we going to not cover the East Palestine hearings because he has the information on it? Like, no.
Of course.
Of course we're not going to. You're right.
Like,
exactly.
if that's what we're about, we're deeply unserious.
Right. Then what are we doing? Right.
What
exactly.
What
am I
are
gonna
we
not
doing?
cover it?
We might as well just do a gossip channel.
Right. And then he'll come on. And he'll have a good time with us because we'll be upfront about the fact that we're a gossip channel, and he'll admire that about us, and we'll get along great
if we're honest about it.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's the key to this whole thing. All right, so
that's our take.
Well, I'll have a little bit more to add.
Kate will have more to add.
But first, I feel like we have to actually
that's my take.
Do this, right? So this week, the National Transportation Safety Board held 2 days worth of hearings in East Palestine, Ohio, and we will get to the hearings themselves in a moment and the findings that they yielded. But first, Status Coup did actually obtain some exclusive video and audio of Mark Durno, who is an EPA on-site coordinator, who admitted on hidden camera that 4 of the 5 Norfolk Southern cars carrying vinyl chloride were actually not showing signs of distress. And so this is video. Sorry, let me just make sure I have the audio configured correctly here because I don't want to screw this up. I apologize, folks. I probably had that right. Yeah, there we go. Audio.
Intern.
Beautiful. So here is a brief piece of video here, like I said, saying that the cars that were carrying that toxic substance were not showing any signs of stress. So here is some hidden camera video and audio of the EPA's market.
My question has always been why 5?
Yeah, why 5?
Because 4 of them would have been perfectly fine. 4 of them, the way I understand it from our guys who are on site, is that 4 of them were not showing signs of stress yet. 1 was, and 1 was getting close.
Was that one?
So
in
why?
the 4?
Why? And then we had 2 burn pits, right? So
Right.
that tells me that, let's say 1 could influence 1 or 2 others. What about the other 2?
Have you guys stopped any fluid?
So those are some of the hold that thought.
Oh, okay.
So those are some of the questions that I think are going to come out as NTSB is coming here at the end of the month.
Yeah.
I think those will be some
I think that
questions.
there's a lot of stuff that's going to come out with them.
Yeah.
But
there's an investigative side of this that hasn't even
Right.
started yet. You know, I worked up in Flint for a year and a half, and that investigation is still going.
Still going on. Okay, so there you have it there, saying that 4 of the 5 cars, they really had no business leaking in the first place. Interesting thing here, as he writes, 4 of the vinyl chloride cars were grouped together, cars 26, 27, 28, and 29, with the 5th car, 24 cars behind them. So what are the odds that that 5th car needed to be leaked in what they called a controlled burn? All right, but some more audio here, and as you can see, it's video technically, but it really plays more like audio because it was hidden camera, right? Durno went on to admit that the emptying of vinyl chloride from the cars could more accurately be called an open burn, as opposed to the official line at the time, which is that this was a very managed and by-the-book controlled release. So this is a bit longer here, but I think it's worth playing at least most of this.
So, you know how last week I brought up the thing about that being an open burn? And you said that it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. So what I said was, yes, you can consider that an open burn.
Okay.
Right? But in an emergency situation, it is what it is.
Then I printed this out from where it's from. But it had said, like, you can't do open burns at like sunset, or they have to be out by sunset.
Okay.
So like that happened about an hour before sunset. Well, that's when it got dark at my house.
That's right. No, it was still burning at sunset. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
And then when there's a temperature inversion, does that mean that kind of inversion that happened?
So interesting thing about the inversion. So first of all, you're right. All the open burn regulations would apply, but in an emergency situation,
Okay.
there are a lot of things that we do. We're actually exempt. If we were doing that work, we're actually exempt from those types of regulations because it's an emergency. Right?
Okay.
Now, the company's not necessarily. So there could be significant fines and penalties levied based on their actions.
Was it the?
There could be.
Was it the one of the branches of like National Guard? I think is who did the actual detonation.
No, they did the modeling. The detonation was a company that I think they're out of Texas.
Okay.
They're the experts on controlled releases.
Yeah, because I had heard that there was a guy that was like 19 years old.
Okay, so that's all we need from there. Durno obviously went on to say that because this was an emergency situation where, decisions about what to do with these cars had to be made in haste, that there could be penalties and fines imposed upon Norfolk Southern, but he also did caution people that they may try to beat those fines by claiming it was an emergency situation and they had to act quickly. So let's just play this piece here.
But then there's an enforcement piece where we have a lot of opportunities to use our enforcement authority based on their actions that were taken, right? Hey, good to see you again. Based on the actions that were taken. For example, they didn't call the National Response Center immediately like they're required to, right? So from an enforcement standpoint, when we get into that phase, we can levy pretty significant fines and penalties against the railroad because of that. Similar with other environmental rules, but again, they could fight us on that because it was an emergency situation. So what I guess what I'm telling you is this idea of the open burn, I don't think it's going to go that far.
Okay, so pouring a little cold water on people who might be getting their hopes up that they will get some justice, even though I would argue penalties and fines are not really justice in any true sense here. This was obviously criminal negligence. These companies are rich enough to afford penalties and fines. They factor it into their budget. A lot of these companies literally will factor in penalties and fines to their operating budget. That doesn't hurt them as well, right? So, top 5 bombshells from East Palestine disaster.
They never find them an amount that would really hurt them. And
they'll never do that.
And they'll never send any of these people to jail. What do you have to do if you're a rich white collar executive to go to jail in this country at this point? It's things like this that have caused the kind of absolute collapse in belief in the system.
Right. Of course. Absolutely. And that's something that we'll get to. We're going to get to the actual hearing in a moment. We'll have some points on that. But I do want to note those video clips that we just played were taken by people of the town. Right. The New York Times wanted those tapes, and they told the New York Times no, they gave them to Status Quo instead. So that's a pretty big scoop, right? I mean, that's a pretty big get that the New York Times was asking for them, and they gave it to Jordan instead of the New York Times. They would have gotten a lot more exposure in the New York Times, obviously. But they did give that tape, that video, and that audio to Status Quo.
Which is probably because
because he's been a presence.
The New York Times, they've been there through this entire crisis.
Right. He's been a presence. So they probably trusted him with that more than they did the New York Times. The Times was there when it was front page news for everybody. And then, like almost everybody, they left. So here's some bombshells from the hearing itself. Okay. So we're not going to go through this whole thing here. Norfolk Southern sent manifest to its sketchy contractor hour before first responders. So for months, a top concern expressed to Status Quo among first responders who responded to the fire produced after the February 3rd derailment was that it took hours after the fire started for firefighters to learn they were dealing with toxic hazardous chemicals in the fire they were trying to put out. In Thursday's hearing, NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy laid out the timeline for how long it took Norfolk Southern to send emergency first responders to the train manifest with all order and nature of chemicals in the 38 cars, that came off the rails, 11 of which contained hazardous chemicals. Homendy referred Norfolk Southern first sent the manifest to its contractor, CTEH. That's probably the company that Durno was referring to in those videos, a company with a questionable track record for accuracy and credibility in air testing post-disasters at 9:08 p.m., which was 14 minutes after the derailment. So this private company was the first to know. Norfolk Southern did not inspect the train car before it derailed in East Palestine. That one pretty much explains itself. So I'll go on here because this fits the main thrust of this story here. East Palestine's fire chief was given 13 minutes to decide whether to detonate the vinyl chloride cars. So here is East Palestine Fire Chief Keith Drabick, who was not on the ground for the first few hours after the derailment and fire since he was out of town on vacation. Yeah. Told NTSB authorities he was given a shockingly short amount of time to decide whether to conduct a vent and burn or, more simply put, detonate 5 cars carrying toxic vinyl chloride over East Palestine. Let's play this video right here.
Who made the ultimate decision to approve the vent and burn?
The final yes was given by me based on the consensus of everybody in the unified command that there was no other option. No objections were given to that during that meeting, where no other options were given at that point. So as a consensus of the meeting, it was the final okay was given by me as the incident commander based on the consensus of the unified command.
And how much time were you given to make the decision to approve the vent and burn?
When we got taken down to that room, we were told we had 13 minutes to make the decision, and that had to do with convergence with the weather and the transitioning from day to night and the product, and it's believed to be what state it was in and the process it was going through.
All right, so 13 minutes. Once again, this theme of it was an emergency,
Right.
we had to move
Right.
quick.
Right.
There are a couple different incentives that are attached to that, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. We're almost through this. 2, this is interesting. Temperatures outside toxic vinyl chloride cars were dropping at the time Norfolk Southern detonated the cars. During Thursday's hearing, an NTSB official showed a graph showing the surface temperature outside the vinyl chloride cars after the derailment up into the time they were detonated was dropping, contradicting Norfolk's claims that car temperatures were heating up so much there was a risk of an imminent, uncontrolled explosion threatening the residents' lives. Here is the chart. Decision to vent and burn. There was a spike here, but when the vent and burn was conducted, you could see the temperature much lower than it was when they said, okay, this is a go. We have to do this. And then finally here, vinyl chloride manufacturer repeatedly told Norfolk Southern there was no need to detonate the vinyl chloride cars. So I want to go way down here to play this segment. This is the last video we'll play, and then we'll have some more to say about this.
And on Sunday morning, February 5th, we further reinforced our view that polymerization was not occurring during a call with Norfolk Southern representatives. As previously mentioned, Oxyvinyls had dispatched a 3-person team to Ohio in order to make certain that we had representatives on the ground who could serve as a resource to Norfolk Southern and those managing the response effort. My colleague on the panel, Steve Smith, led that team, and he arrived in East Palestine on the afternoon of Sunday, February the 5th. On Sunday evening, Steve met with Norfolk Southern's emergency response contractors and, for the 3rd time, stated Oxyvinyl's view that polymerization of VCM was not occurring. In summary, although our rail cars did not initiate the derailment and did not breach in the derailment, we provided technical support to Norfolk Southern and its emergency response contractors. We sent a team to Ohio to support Norfolk Southern's response effort, and we provided information regarding stabilized VCM. We advised that the temperature of the rail cars should be monitored, and we communicated our view that polymerization was not occurring.
Okay, so over and over again,
Right.
You have people confirming that this hasty decision to just do what they called a controlled release, and now, as we know from the EPA themselves, was really more of an open burn, just let it rip. That's why you had that big black cloud of smoke form over the town, that was not necessary. And the incentive of calling this an emergency and saying we have to move quick and we have to open up these cars and release this vinyl chloride into the air, burn it into the atmosphere, that comes with two incentives. Obviously, and this is the incentive that Jordan talked about himself in the video that I saw him do, there's the obvious short-term financial incentive of we need to get this cleaned up quickly.
Getting the track clear.
So that the track can be opened again, because, you know, every hour that track is inactive costs millions of dollars. And so that's the short-term financial incentive for saying this is an emergency, now, let's move, right? However, there's another incentive too, and that is the legal and political incentive. Because when you declare it an emergency, you grant certain immunities and certain protections for decisions that were made under duress. In other words, the more time you take to make the decision, the more scrutiny that decision is subject to,
So,
not just in the moment, but after the fact, because every step along the way is documented at that point in a way that it cannot be as thoroughly documented if you just move through it quickly. And now, as the EPA guy already said, Norfolk Southern is planning to fight these fines under the defense of, well, this was an emergency. We had to move quickly because the things couldn't blow. So not only are you granted more forgiveness for your final decision, but there's also less documentation of what happened leading up to that call. So what you have here is a financial incentive running parallel to a legal incentive. This brings me to the quote I use on this show a lot, which was George Carlin's, "You don't need a formal conspiracy when interests converge." These financial incentives and these legal incentives do not match up by accident or by coincidence or for no reason. They match up because the government has been captured by the railroads and their lobbyists who write the laws in their favor to begin with, and then get the regulatory outcomes that they need and get the legal outcomes that suit their incentives as well. It all works hand in hand, one way, the wrong way, against ordinary people every time. And this is how you create.
It's always heads I win, tails you lose.
Right. Heads I win, tails you lose. Right? That's just how it lines up. That's how it goes. So do you have anything to add to this before I say my little extra piece here?
Well, this is part of an overall condition that we have in this late stage capitalism. If we ever get to do this full time, which hopefully we will. We're getting there. I will do a series of videos. I've been talking about this for a long time. I want to do videos about Boeing, about people who really should be in prison. The people who are supposed to be protecting us cannot be trusted anymore because all of our institutions have been captured by capital. So you can't trust that the plane you're on is safe. You can't trust that the food you're eating is safe. You can't trust, not to get us a strike, you can't trust that what the pharmaceutical companies are telling you broadly is true. You can I've mentioned this documentary before. It's on Netflix. It's called The Bleeding Edge. That'll horrify you. It'll horrify you. People don't really understand how much regulatory capture there is in medical devices. You assume that if a doctor is going to put this in your body, that it's gone through a rigorous process, but that's really not true. You assume that if a plane is going up in the air with hundreds of people in it, that it's gone through a rigorous process, but that's really not true. These institutions that we were once able to rely on to protect us have at best become no help. And at worst, they've actually become an active threat to our safety. And all of that is here in the East Palestine story. You think people who thought they were going to go to jail that they were going to face the penalties that somebody who did this to an entire town full of people, many of whom, as the years go on, will probably end up getting illnesses and cancer, I'm sorry to say, as a result of this? You think they would have done this if they thought they'd be looking at the jail sentence you should get for that? Life, the rest of your life in prison? Never. They know at worst they're going to get a little fine. Slap on the wrist. They'll be fine because it's one big club and you ain't in it, to once again quote Mr. Carlin.
Right. And so that's good work, obviously, there. And what I would just add about Jordan, because he's probably going to watch this segment. He knows we're doing it. He might even be watching right now. Who knows? You've obviously done all this work here, exposing what? You're exposing the lies, distortions, and gaslighting of these institutions, of these organizations, of these officials about the truth of what's happening in this town. Don't forget, the health authorities, the environmental authorities told the people, no, it's safe to be there. They're still obviously suffering health consequences, which would lead any rational person to believe it is not, in fact, safe to be there. And so, if you're Jordan, you've done all this work exposing these narratives to be total horseshit. Now, if you're Jordan, what if, say, Max Blumenthal were to come up to you and say, hey, Jordan, what are you driving people crazy with all this conspiracy bullshit in East Palestine? Don't you know the authorities said it's safe to be there? What are you doing this for? You wouldn't like that, because you would say, hey, I've been on the ground for 5 months here. I've written hundreds, if not thousands, of pages on this topic. I've researched it left and right and up and down. And I know what I'm talking about enough to know that these narratives are nonsense. You wouldn't like that very much, and you'd be right not to like that very much. But that is how you sound to Max Blumenthal when, for instance, on our show, you tell me he's a Putin puppet. And I say, well, no, he's not. And then you tell me, well, you're full of shit, right? Like, he would tell you, I've been studying this issue for years, because they have over at the Gray Zone. They didn't just start learning about Ukraine in February 2022, right? They've been on this beat for a while. They'll say, hey, we've been looking into this for years. We've written thousands of pages about this. We've interviewed hundreds of people about this. We know what we're talking about a little more than to be called Putin puppets by someone who knows the issue much less than we do, right? Or even Jimmy talking about, these, shall we say, pharmaceutical matters that he's been talking about for the past year and a half or so.
Or RFK, for that matter.
Right. He's interviewed a lot of people. He spent a lot of time looking into this. This doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything he says, but when you fire off a tweet with a checklist just sort of categorizing these positions in the same way that an MSNBC host would categorize them, and I'm not necessarily saying that that's how you feel if we really dig into it, but that's how it comes across a lot. These guys feel disrespected in the same way that you would feel if anyone casually dismissed any of this East Palestine reporting that you did. So that would be what I would say. Is, try to, give the same level of attention and at least respect, even if you don't agree with what they're saying, to some of these guys who you may disagree with, as they would give to you on issues like this. Because, look, for everything everybody has said about you, Jordan, and we've said a few things on that broadcast ourselves as well, not exempting ourselves from this, nobody's actually questioned the validity of the work. Right? Even the people who have impugned your motives, nobody can actually point to the work itself and say, this is bad work. I've never heard a single person say that. And so, they treat that with a seriousness. I would say, try and treat their work with a seriousness as well, even if you don't agree with the findings. And, before throwing out a casual one-off smear, like an anti-vax or a Putin puppet or a Tucker Carlson stan, express a little more curiosity and respect for what they're saying. I think it would go a long way, and I think that might help, because it's a shame that we couldn't have you here to do this segment. Like, the segment suffered because you're not here to talk about it.
Of
but
course.
we can't have
It
you.
would have been so much better.
Right. So anyway.
you got people's fucking heads exploding like fucking scanners over here. Just because we covered the story.
Right.
Let's have you on. And it is a fucking crying shame to me because you have this, what I would call a third wave of independent outlets that are, I would argue, maybe closer to stories like this because it's a little grubbier, it's a little grittier, it's a little more working class, it's a little more from the ground that you report on a lot of the people who I think are coming up in this wave. So you have this really high quality journalist covering these kinds of stories that has been rendered so toxic in this space that nobody asks them to come on. It's a fucking tragedy. It's a tragedy. Like, essentially, people in our network could be making very good use of the skills of this person who really wants to share them, but you got to fucking, go after Aaron Mate. Like, just that's my 2 cents. Just fucking stop it. Stop it. Do the reporting. It's not even your area, which you admit. You don't even care about that shit.
Well, they don't care, but it's not your area. No, it's not your area. Just like this isn't my area. Like, I couldn't pick a fight with you over this if I wanted to. I don't want to, but I couldn't. Right? So there. That's what I would say. And like on the Ukraine issue, for example, like when you well, anyway, I said what I had to say. I don't have to say it a second, third time. All right, let's do some super chats, and then we got to do some Hunter Biden stuff, right? All right, folks, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. 802 in here. Lovely crowd this evening. Thank you so much. Alan Paulson, thanks for the $5. Are you guys in the same apartment? No, we are. We're
not the Van Boys, man.
No, not the Van Boys. I'm up in the Albany area, and Russell is in New York City. So we are a couple 100 miles apart.
I'm in Harlem.
What's that?
I'm in Harlem.
Russell's in Harlem. Yep, and I'm up in Albany. So I think we're a little under 200 miles, probably about 150 miles apart. But thank you for the compliment. Appreciate that, Alan. Tusker, Azov Battalion, call the Russian orcs. Yeah, right. Indeed. Nicole, thanks for the $5. Putin also has a degree in economics. He's been preparing for this war with sanctions for 8 years. No, the people who thought that it was going to fall in 12 hours. Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. Yeah, Moscow is going to fall today because this guy decided he was going to turn around and go and overthrow the government. Not very well thought out, to put it mildly. Thank you, Nicole. Courtney, thanks for the $5. I don't think NATO paid them to succeed, but try just like the other 4 stupid assassination attempts. It's possible. I mean, that's totally a valid theory, right? I mean, that could be something.
It is, but that I mean, it can be both. That guy had a legitimate grudge.
Yeah, well, when he was there, he seemed like an angry guy. Guy's a little angry today, as Scaramucci would say. Black Freud, a 3-hour tour, a 3-hour tour. Oops,
we gotta write that parody song before it's too late.
Dave Delarai, thanks for the $8. Giving San Francisco Bay another try tomorrow. Since I've been brewing at home, maybe I will like it now. Will not be worse than Caribou. Oh, Caribou, was that the one that you didn't like? Yeah, Caribou. I was never really a fan of Caribou either. Okay, perfect.
I mean, we might be on the verge of announcing a winner for this because I think I'm out of coffee I can find around here that people have recommended.
Oh wow, okay.
Like realistically, I'm not going for anything that I'm gonna have to ship every time I need coffee.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, well, that's news.
Honestly, you would think going into Whole Foods, like you would think they'd have everything. Actually, not really. Maybe it's because I'm going into the Harlem Whole Foods, honestly. But it was not as well stocked on the coffee as I would have expected.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see what the difference would be. I know Union Square has a Whole Foods, but I would think it's stocked pretty much the same.
For all the years I've lived here, you would be surprised.
Oh, yeah?
They do that shit. I'm not saying they should. I'm saying they do.
They do. Interesting. in general, we on the left would do well to broaden the range of issues we can agree to disagree about, in my humble opinion. Thank you, Sandy M. Yeah, look, I think agreeing to disagree is fine. I think a lot of what Jordan has done is not agreeing to disagree, right? I think a lot of what he has done
it's not like
fights
everyone,
with people.
It's not like everyone's just picking on him. He's
right.
Yeah, he's incited that.
Right.
He's brought that on himself to a large extent.
Right. So when we say it's too bad that we can't do it, we're not blaming ourselves or our peers for that. It's just it's unfortunate because
it's
like
a
these
fucking
are stories that like if you wanted to cover East Palestine, you either had to basically read The Lever or Status Coup. Those are the only two. And even The Lever, you know, I won't say they stopped, but they didn't do nearly the reporting to the extent that Jordan did. And so like that's it. And when it comes down to a thing like this where the hearing is there and he had these advanced recordings, which once again the New York Times wanted those recordings,
right?
And they were denied them. So like what are you going to do, not cover them? Those are not what we're going to pretend that they don't exist because he has them. I mean, that would just be juvenile. Not only juvenile, it would be a betrayal of you know, the most important people in this equation, which are the people in the town.
Right.
You know,
if we're gonna make those kinds of decisions, like if we're just gonna all do like mean girl clicky kind of shit, we might as well just go back to being Democrats. It's easier.
Yeah, right. And the money's better.
The money's better. It's a lot easier.
Like we're not gonna ignore the story because he has it. That would just be I mean, we would just not do the show at that point if we were going to do it.
I'm tempted to use the R word. That's how bad that would be.
Yeah, exactly. We can't, but
we can't. But I'm tempted.
Sentiment is there. RJ Ramrod, $4.99. Nobody's doing what Jordan is doing, exposing the duopoly's horrific corruption, and then lecturing everybody about how important it is to stop the GOP. Well, no, that's a very valid point, and that's what we've said. Like a lot of the positions he seems to take are positions that contradict the logical conclusions that one would draw based on his reporting. Like, how can you look at East Palestine, where you have government agencies and regulatory bodies and corporations and the sort of their hired hands, right? The contractors who arrived on scene before the regulators. Like, how can you see them working together to protect each other at the expense of the people and not come to the conclusion that the system is broken beyond repair and that we have to, yes, in a certain sense, I'm sorry, accelerate the demise of the system in the hopes that we could build something in its wake? That to me seems a perfectly reasonable thing to think after reading a story like this and following a story like this. But then he'll go out and he'll dunk on Trump supporters and get clicks out of that.
Right.
And with the implication being that Trump is off limits, but perhaps Joe Biden is if not off limit, less off limits, right? And so I agree with you. I think that's a good point.
Well, this is really, I can say from going back and forth, and this is what was confusing even in the live debate. And I mentioned this even when we were on RBN the other day. You know, it's easy to debate somebody who thinks the squad's doing great or somebody who thinks Joe Biden is getting a bad rap. Jordan agrees with 99% of what most of our listeners believe. The key difference from which all the other differences stem politically, getting away from personality stuff, just core political disagreement, he still believes that the Democratic Party can be beaten by voting and in their party. And I think most of the people who watch us probably don't at this point. I don't think you'd like our show very much if you did. Yeah, no, I mean that Tina Turner, the Nina Turner thing, Tina. Little rolling on the river there. The thing we got into there about her and why she lost and that kind of thing, that is the difference right there. Even if you think that the Democratic Party could have been beaten on the ground there, the belief that it matters is really a big dividing line. Like, we don't believe that would matter based on experience. look, man, I troll Cori Bush every now and then because I don't even think she writes these tweets. I think she has staffers who write these very culture war kind of tweets. I don't even think she writes that shit, honestly, man, because to hear her talk, I've never really heard her talk about things like that. It's a lot of I'm for good things and against bad things. All the squad tweet out shit like that. Hell, Nina Turner mostly tweets out shit like that. Like they all stay inside the lines of I'm for the latest thing, and they don't really depart from it very much in a way that's going to piss off the establishment. So what's it going to do for us to elect one more of those, especially when it's such a Herculean task beating the DNC on the ground?
Right.
We got to go through all this shit to elect someone who, in the end, once you get them in there, is going to vote the same way as the DNC insider they defeated in the end. As soon as Pelosi sits down and, they put their face in the tube with the rat and, threaten them, and that's it. They don't speak out anymore. Why? We're just not down for going through that again. That's what I said on the show. But that's really the core difference, not only with Jordan, I think with a lot of people with his politics who will say, oh, yeah, AOC is terrible, but you have to vote harder. They believe that that's still a worthwhile endeavor, and clearly we do not.
Right. Well said, Tusker. Not a fan of Jordan, but I am a fan of the people of East Palestine and anyone else that doesn't have a way to be heard. Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, there's no question this week when we found out that the Transportation Safety Board was going to be there doing their hearing. There was absolutely no way we were not going to cover that. And because Jordan had that video and that audio, which was very important leading up to the findings of the board, there's no way we weren't going to use that. Simple as that. Simple as that. All right, we have one more segment to do. I'm assuming, Justin, you're a patron caller. I'm assuming you have something to say about this segment. So if you got something to say about this segment, we will let you say it. Hello, Justin. Thanks for the call.
Oh, hey, what's going on, guys?
What's going on?
Actually, I wanted to talk to you about the Russian coup attempt, quote
Oh,
unquote.
all right. Well, fair enough. Go ahead.
Okay. This was not a coup attempt. His name is Yevgeny Prigozhin.
Yeah.
Just so you get the pronunciation correct, but yeah, like
I got the last name right. What did I call him? Yevgeny? Sorry.
No,
it's not our strong suit.
To do the accents.
Yeah,
I don't attempt accents on the show. That's my policy.
Okay.
Yeah,
of course. My Russian sucks too, but that was not a coup attempt at all. He's not working for the West. He's a true believer. Putin's right-hand man, actually.
So what did you think he wanted to do? Do you think he wanted to be let go? Do you think he wanted to remain with the Wagner group? Because that's what it seemed to me, is that he didn't want to be forced to fold into the army.
Well, no, I think he has a beef with Shoigu, who's the defense minister.
But that's an interesting. I mean, that's a fairly reckless and suicidal way to express that, don't you think?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they shot down not only they shot down a Russian aircraft. I don't know what kind. They also shot down a Black Hawk helicopter, or Black Shark, Ka-52. Yeah, it's absolutely reckless.
Yeah. So that's what just makes me. I mean, I believe you. Like I understand what you're saying. It's just, I mean, that seems to be a pretty insane way of dealing with that. In a way that, it's just hard for me to
100%.
believe. Like a general, a commander like that would be that impulsive.
Well, you have to realize, that's like you live by the sword, you die by the sword, right?
Right.
So, you have a private military contractor that actually defeated NATO's best army in Bakhmut.
Right.
Which is pretty impressive. I'm sure he's pretty impressed with himself, and he was kind of a badass. Like he was on the front line and stuff, and getting shot at.
Well, he was their hero, yeah, of course.
So I'm sure he is just taking a whiff of his own glory here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, now he gets to, I guess, retire out in Belarus, and I guess his army now
that's not good.
becomes under.
I give him the lifespan of Jeffrey Epstein in federal prison.
on
He's not going to last very long at the dock out there.
We will see.
I hope he likes potatoes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Time will tell. All right, Jordan. Jordan. Justin, thank you for the call. We'll come back to you after.
Don't assault me. Yeah, don't assault me. Call me Jordan.
Sorry.
Sorry. You did not want to take all that incoming.
Don't want to take all that. No, of course.
No, love you guys. Great show.
All right. Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it, man.
See ya.
All right.
All right.
Justin's a patron supporter who has call-in access to this show. You can join him. We have a big crowd over on Rumble. 131 people watching over in Rumble. So shout out to all you guys over there. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Rumble. That goes for you, everybody, too. Like I said, Thursday, we're splitting the stream. Half the show is with Pasta here on YouTube. Half the show is with Pasta over on Rumble, Rockfin, and Twitter. So please go over to our Rumble channel and subscribe if you want to catch the entire show next week. That's important. All right, we're going to take some more super chats before we wrap, but we're not wrapped yet. We have one more segment.
Oh, yeah, we have one more.
That we got to get to. So, Russell, take it away.
Oh, you're not going to do the super chats? All right.
Well, we'll do them. We'll do them one.
All right. Give me a sec. Hang on.
All right, here, I'll do one more.
I got things going on here.
I'll do one more while you're doing that.
What the hell?
Arthur, here's the deal. Talking about the horrors of neoliberalism in the abstract is not enough. We have to put a human face on the suffering. That's the value of what Jordan does. Well, he does a lot of, interviews out there, which I think are of use. But also, I think, like in this case, how many sources were there for this? I mean, Politico covered the hearing, but they didn't have that footage that basically validated, if you had that footage and you watched that footage, and I watched it earlier in the week, you could tell a lot of what was going to come out in the hearings, because a lot of what came out in the hearings was validated and informed by that video and audio that we heard a few days early, which he had. And so where were you going to get it, right? Where else? Franklin, Jordan is so boring, he makes my soul frown. Well, maybe that's good we didn't have him then, because Russell and I are more entertaining. I would say that.
Look, man. I think even he would admit that.
He would have. We're a couple of theater boys. All right, Russell, do you got your stuff together here?
I got it.
All right, so here we go.
All right, so see, I hate when it goes automatically to video, especially with the post. You don't know if they're gonna have a page 2 girl on there. We're gonna get demonetized.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so. Y'all have probably heard that Joe Biden's crackhead son is not out of the woods yet, nor is the Biden crime family. Yes, I'm calling them that because, come on, man. I mean, does anyone believe that they're not moving money around from foreign entities to enrich the family, or that Joe Biden doesn't know about it? Like, can we just throw that out as absurd on the face of it? The basic premise that this is all kosher, that this is just some ne'er-do-well crackhead son and not a crime family.
Right.
Biden DOJ ran interference for first son Hunter in tax fraud probe, IRS whistleblowers say in bombshell testimony. So this was 2 IRS agents who have come forward with some very explosive allegations and documents. So 2 IRS whistleblowers told Congress in closed-door testimony released Thursday that the Justice Department waged a cover-up in the tax fraud investigation of first son Hunter Biden, revealing stunning details of alleged interference and new evidence indicating President Biden was involved in his son's foreign dealings. Among the shocking details made public by the House Ways and Means Committee, quote, the Hunter Biden probe was opened in November 2018 off the back of an investigation the IRS was conducting of a foreign-based amateur online pornography platform. Okay, I looked at 5 different articles, and I picked the Post because they were the only ones that had that spectacular detail. And then it being the Post, look, give the devil their due. There's no way they accidentally followed that up with the next line. The first son was given the code name Sportsman by investigators. Only the Post would think of that, which I appreciate.
We should go right for the Post.
We really should. Delaware U.S. Attorney David White. If you're going to get accused of being a right-winger, you should at least make right-wing money.
Yeah, exactly.
Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss sought to bring federal charges against Hunter 53 in the Central District of California and in Washington, D.C. last year, and was denied both times by Biden-appointed U.S. attorneys Martin Estrada and Matthew Graves, respectively. According to the second whistleblower, who has remained anonymous, the investigation covered the years 2014 through 2019, during which Hunter and his, quote, associates received approximately $17.3 million from Ukraine, Romania, and China, with the first son alone scooping $8.3 million. Quote, investigators pressed for felony charges against Hunter for ducking $2.2 million in tax payments rather than misdemeanors, announced Tuesday as part of a probation-only plea deal. Assistant U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf discouraged investigators from pursuing lines of questioning related to Joe Biden, saying at one point that there was no specific criminality, according to Shapley. The revelation that Biden appointees block charges against his son is politically explosive because Attorney General Merrick Garland testified under oath to Congress earlier this year that Weiss was empowered to bring charges outside of Delaware. Intentionally misleading Congress is a crime. Weiss, who signed off this week on the Delaware plea deal, sought to be appointed special counsel in the case at least twice, including as recently as spring 2022, but was turned down by the Biden Justice Department, both whistleblowers alleged. Okay, so let's pause for a second, but there's more to this. Okay, so Merrick Garland claimed that the Attorney General of Delaware, Weiss, had broad powers to investigate and go wherever the investigation leads. They have asked Weiss if these allegations are untrue, and he has refused to answer, which is kind of a smoking gun to me. Like, why would you not just come out? That's somebody who's worried that they could get nailed on perjury later for saying that. Otherwise, why would you not just say, no, this isn't true? The fact that he's not saying it, I think says quite a lot. Also, I'm not sure if this article gets into it. It might. A whole team of IRS investigators that started out investigating this case got removed from the case, according to these whistleblowers, because they were pushing for these charges.
And I just want to interject one broad thing. Okay, and this is not, you can say that this is not based on any knowledge or demographics at the IRS, but, you have these IRS employees coming forward and blowing the lid off of this, knowing that they're likely to be vilified in the media by the government.
Where's the upside?
Right? Where's the upside and where's the motive? And this is where I will admit this is speculation on my part, but I think it's grounded in certain assumptions that are valid. I would imagine there are not too many partisan Republicans working at the IRS, right? I mean, it's kind of a weird place for a Republican to go and work.
For people who probably don't believe in the entire mission of the agency.
Exactly. Like, this would be like Michelle Obama opening a Chick-fil-A, right? Like, you just wouldn't think that they would do that, right? Again, I'm not saying I know that for sure, but the idea, because, this is already being smeared as, a political, hatchet job, right? And what is the benefit to these people? These are, if there were ever a government functionary, right, who's just there to go along to get along, it is someone who works for the IRS, right? I mean, that is, you cannot be more of a cog in the machine than to work for the IRS.
Put in your time, collect your pension.
Exactly. And so where's the motive? And B, I'm sorry, it's just hard for me to believe that, the Ron DeSantis for president co-chair, is putting in time at the IRS. It just doesn't seem right to me. So to me, those are two things there that make me say, yeah, this is almost certainly legit, at least in its basic premises.
Yeah, I think some of what we're seeing happen with these whistleblowers is, look, you do have people in some of these agencies who actually believe that the government should be honest, who from time to time get offended enough by the way that our government has really become just a big whorehouse that they will come out and say something about it. The fact that you have a sympathetic Republican Congress is what may make it appear Republican, because they probably wouldn't come forward if it were a Democratic Congress. They wouldn't even give them a hearing if it were. And if they did, they would bury it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, do you want to continue? Just good news. Good news from the chat. Karen is out of the ER, I believe. That's what you're saying. I'm following. I won't put your diagnosis up on the screen, even though you did put it in the chat, but I don't want to make that super public in case you're not comfortable with that. But it is good that you're out of there and going home, I assume. So best wishes, Karen.
Yes, that is good news. See, sometimes we get happy endings, even on DueDissidence.
Right, yeah, exactly. There's hope even on this show.
There's hope.
Right.
Okay, you can see the article?
Yep, I just put it back up.
All right.
Because the WhatsApp, that's what we're getting to now, and that's the real big thing.
Shapley, who sat for a 6-hour deposition with the committee on May 26th, took over the Hunter Biden case in January 2020 and said that investigators had turned up fresh evidence of Joe Biden's involvement in his family's overseas income. That included eye-popping communications from Hunter Biden's iCloud account, Shapley said, citing a message that directly implicated the president in an attempt to coerce money from a Chinese businessman. Quote, and this is a WhatsApp message they obtained. We obtained a July 30th, 2017 WhatsApp message from Hunter Biden to Henry Zhao, where Hunter Biden wrote, I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. And Z, if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows, and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. That's some gangster shit right there. We couldn't believe that we saw that, the second whistleblower told the committee. That was more indication that the dad might have been involved.
My father's sitting here licking a vanilla ice cream cone with crack rocks for the sprinkles. He's loving it, and we are very, very disappointed.
We're very disappointed that you didn't meet us at the appointed time at the fruit stand. Zhao of Harvest Fund Management is a Communist Party official, and his fund was associated with BHR Partners, an investment fund Hunter had co-founded in 2013, 12 days after he joined Vice President Biden aboard Air Force Two for an official trip to Beijing. No, nothing to see there. Nothing to see there. Hunter held on to his 10% stake in BHR Partners through at least part of his father's first year in office as president, and the White House and Hunter's representatives have refused any transparency into his alleged divestment. Hey, Keaton, wasn't this going to be the most transparent administration in history?
I thought that was Obama, or no? That ended up not being it. So it was going to be Biden. Okay.
We're still waiting. The BHR venture was the first of two major Biden family dealings in China. Through the second with CEFC China Energy, Hunter and first brother James Biden received $4.8 million. That fucking guy is like Jack Nicholson in The Departed. In 2017 and 2018, according to a Washington Post review of laptop records. A May 2017 email about the CEFC deal referred to Joe Biden as the big guy, due a 10% cut. And an October 2017 document listed Joe Biden as a participant on a call about CEFC's attempt to buy U.S. natural gas. Yeah, no. Well, this all seems above board.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, look, the idea that this was anything but influence peddling from the get-go is just patently absurd. I mean, it's on its face ridiculous.
Okay, now this is actually, look, I mean, I'm staying with this because there are, I looked across 5 articles to make sure, because the Post has a bias. I wanted to make sure they're not reporting shit that's, sketchy, but no, they went deeper into this stuff than other places, but that's what you expect.
They ran the laptop story originally, right? I mean, this is the problem, is that, the respected media won't touch the story, so then it falls to the Post to do it, and then the Post does it, and you say, oh, where'd you read that? The Post, right? You see, that's the trap that they pull on everything.
And look, I did, because, I anticipating that. I think all the former Bernie bros, we've all been trained to make sure that everything that we source is unimpeachable, because
I don't anymore.
We were born in the fire of arguing with shit libs.
I mean, I understand the habit of that, but now I think, the media has just so debased itself that it's not even worth. I'm past even arguing with these people anymore. Like I don't
argue with those people, but I still I mean, I think it's something that, because now I actually talk about this stuff for thousands of people, I should probably make sure my sources are correct.
Right.
So Shapley said investigators were barred from searching a guest house at Joe Biden's Wilmington, Delaware home to find supporting evidence, and that Wolf objected during a meeting on December 3rd, 2020, to questioning a key Biden family associate, Rob Walker, about the president. Quote, Wolf interjected and said she did not want to ask about the big guy. And I said, no, none of this sounds like a crime family. She want to ask about the big guy, and stated she did not want to ask questions about dad, he said. When multiple people in the room spoke up and objected that we had to ask, she responded, there's no specific criminality to that line of questioning. This upset the FBI too. But investigators later did ask Walker about Joe Biden's role. An FBI agent asked if there were any times when he was in office, or did you hear Hunter Biden say that he was setting up a meeting with his dad with them while dad was still in office? Yes, Walker answered, according to Shapley, before inexplicably the FBI agent changed the subject. Ixnay on the China money,
Well, this is the thing. If I could just interject this for a second, because, we talk about the Biden crime family and these grifters, and they're making all this money and stuff like that. I have a feeling like his tenure as vice president prompted a lot of this, because if you remember, there was a story that came out. I think it may have been 2016 even, but it was toward the end of Obama's second term, where Beau was ailing. And Biden considered putting his house up for sale to help Beau Biden's family, which doesn't strike you as the thing that somebody who's on the take for millions of dollars a year through these political connections would have to do, right? Like he was always one of the less well-off senators, it seemed. Right. That's why a lot of people always assume that he wasn't corrupt, because you figure he's too fucking poor to be corrupt. If he was corrupt, why would he have to sell his house? Right. And then there was the whole story where Obama offered him financial support in that situation. But maybe it was just, the position of vice president enabled him to start getting paid a little better in these kinds of arrangements. I mean, it's clearly the deal in Ukraine on the with Hunter's position on the board, but it's not like the Bidens have been doing this their whole lives. I mean, unless they're hiding money under mattresses that we don't know about. But if they were, then you wouldn't think he'd put his house up for sale.
Well, James and Hunter have been doing it their whole lives,
right? But that's what I mean.
And also money. Maybe they've been setting aside money.
Maybe,
for him,
that's what I mean.
When you're in the mafia,
it doesn't really compute. It doesn't really
right?
add up to me. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, you go to he's in the White House. Set aside 10% for the big guy. It'll be there for him when he gets out.
Right.
All right. So let me go back over here. All right. So investigators later did ask Walker about Joe Biden's role. An FBI agent asked if there were any times when he was in office, or did you hear Hunter Biden Oh, hang on. That's what I read. The Walker interview on December 8th, 2020 was one of 12 investigators had planned to conduct on a so-called day of action. So they were going to raid, apparently. However, Shapley said he learned the night before that FBI headquarters had notified Secret Service headquarters and the transition team about the planned actions the following day. This essentially tipped off a group of people very close to President Biden, and Hunter Biden gave this group an opportunity to obstruct the approach. According to Shapley, the first son's attorneys refused to allow him to be interviewed. As for the guest house, Shapley said that on September 3rd, 2020, Wolf told us there was more than enough probable cause for the physical search warrant there, but the question was whether the juice was worth the squeeze. Wolf added, according to Shapley, that optics were a driving factor in the decision on whether to execute a search warrant. She said a lot of evidence in our investigation would be found in the guest house of former Vice President Biden, but said there is no way we will get that approved. Keith, can you imagine if this fact pattern were attached to Donald Trump, what the reaction from liberals would be? Because they're very quiet about this right now.
I mean, this would be like Russiagate if it were something. It'd be like Russiagate if they had something.
Exactly. So this gets into the laptop a little, which I didn't see in any other reporting. The testimony also mentions Hunter's infamous abandoned laptop was verified by the FBI in November 2019, but investigators thereafter were barred from seeing it, Shapley said. When the FBI took possession of the device in December 2019, they notified the IRS that it likely contained evidence of tax crimes. However, the laptop was then not shared, prompting an outcry from tax investigators who wanted to look into evidence of criminality on the device, including potential crimes by Joe Biden, whom Hunter griped in a laptop message took half of his lucrative foreign income from countries where the elder Biden held sway as vice president. Wolf stated that she would not have seen it because for a variety of reasons, prosecutors decided to keep it from the investigators. This decision is unprecedented in my experience, Shapley said. Investigators assigned to this investigation were obstructed from seeing all the available evidence. It is unknown if all the evidence in the laptop was reviewed by agents or by prosecutors. Based on guidance provided by the prosecutors on a recurring basis to not look into anything related to President Biden, there is no way of knowing if evidence of other criminal activity existed concerning Hunter Biden or President Biden. Another investigative dispute erupted in December 2020 over the question of whether to search Hunter Biden's Northern Virginia storage unit, with Shapley saying the IRS had prepared an affidavit in support of a search warrant for the unit, but Wolf once again objected. So apparently Wolf is their person on the inside. So you get the picture. This is, yes, exactly. This is like Russiagate if Russiagate had actual meat on the bone. But they're very, now I will say, there has been more reporting on this in the corporate media than you would expect, which tells you how blatant it is. They'll only get into shit like this when you just can't ignore it. When you just can't. They know that the right-wing media is going to get into it, and there's just too much there for them to beat the drum of there's nothing here.
Well,
So
there's also the tactic that they've taken, and this is the tactic that Joe Biden takes every time this is brought up, which is he goes back to, I love my son and I'm proud of my son, implying that the scandal that people are trying to make out of this is Hunter's drug problems, right? And look, I think as Glenn Greenwald mentioned when he covered this the other night, I thought he made a good point, which is that a lot of right-wing politicians and right-wing media have tried to make too much hay out of Hunter's drug problems and his sex life and things like that and made those the scandal because when you call attention to that, it does make not only Hunter look like a sympathetic sort of tragic figure, but it also makes Biden look good when he's out there saying, hey, I love my son, I'm proud of my son. Who wouldn't be proud of your son for, beating a drug habit or, whatever, right? Like those things make you look good, not bad. However, what Biden does is he very sort of sleazily takes advantage of the fact that people will gravitate towards that kind of angle on the story to make every inquiry about this about his son's drug problems, when really that's not what a lot of people are asking him, right? So in other words, whenever he is asked about this, he acts as if this is strictly a personal matter, right? And that it's not in the public interest to know any of this stuff. And that's, he was able to mostly get away with that because the media mostly covers for him. But when it comes to that WhatsApp text and the question of, okay, was your father actually around when you were talking about these business deals? His spokesperson, Karine Jean-Pierre, actually did get some inquiry about this. So should we go to that video?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
And what the president's son was alleging. Was the president there or not?
I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House Counsel. They have addressed this, and I refer you to them. Go ahead.
Karine, have you spoken to the president about this? Have you asked him whether he was there with his son on July 30th?
This is not a conversation that I've had with the president. Again, I would refer you to the White House Counsel.
Do you plan to have that conversation with the president?
No.
Did the president speak with the attorney general at all?
I can't.
Listen, I asked him, are you corrupt? He said no.
Had had a conversation with the attorney general last
I
night.
asked,
What
you
I can
still
refer
smoking
you to
crack?
the White House Counsel's office as it
He
relates
hit
to
that
the
pipe right away.
allegations. They've already addressed this. This is something for them to deal with. I refer you to the Department of Justice on anything else if you don't want to speak to the White House Counsel's office.
And there was
So
reporting
once
earlier-
again, like the framing of this is that, well, this is personal between him and his son.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
It's his
right.
kid. It's not my job as a press secretary to go there. These are personal matters. It's none of anybody's business. And, look, I think as Greenwald said in his piece that he did, like the Republicans did kind of give them that off-ramp in a certain sense, right? By piling on the personal failings and trials of Hunter Biden. Really, that's not what this is really about here. But what I would also add to this is that, this ought to tell you that in the post-Trump era, right? Because I remember when Trump won, there was some hope among some people, well, that this will usher in a new era of accountability for the powerful, right? And you even hear some writers sort of more, left-oriented writers, right, when Trump was impeached and when Trump was indicted, they say, well, this is great because this sets a precedent that presidents are not above the law. And isn't that a good thing? And I'm like, well, I suppose it could be a good thing if you trusted that the powerful would sort of use this as an opportunity to sort of wake themselves up to the fact that they are not above the law and therefore not above scrutiny. But what world are you living in where you actually think they're going to take that approach as opposed to the complete opposite approach? And this seems to have set in with the public as well, which is post-Trump, it seems like you can get away with more than ever before because there's less that is politically disqualifying now that the precedent was set that Trump was elected, right? Like, it's almost like now scandals don't undo anyone anymore. Like, no one actually loses their job or goes to jail from a scandal anymore because they figure, well, look at all the scandals we threw at Trump. He's still in the running, right? He's still a nominee for president. We don't know how those trials are going to go. But the idea that this guy comes along, Donald Trump, he wins, you throw everything at him all day, every day. All that does is make this kind of stuff more commonplace in the eyes of the everyday person, not less. So, like, they're not more likely to hold themselves accountable post-Trump. They're less likely because Trump set a precedent for what you could get away with, right? In their mind. I'm talking about in their minds, right? Red pill universe, Russiagate was bullshit. Trump really is not any more guilty of anything than George Bush was or Bill Clinton was. But in their mind, they see, look at what we threw at this guy. If it missed, that means surely we could do whatever the fuck we want because if they couldn't nail this guy, they're not going to nail us. And so far, they seem to be right in that calculation.
Well, I think being guilty of anything is entirely beside the point. I mean, what they did with Trump was just partisan warfare, set off by the Hillary Clinton campaign looking for an excuse for its failure and settling on Russia.
Right.
We have evidence that they ginned up this Russia excuse before the election was even held, that they decided they're going to paint Trump as a Russian agent. And then after they lost, they just doubled and tripled and quadrupled down. And the media was also desperate to avoid their own culpability because those are their readers. The people who are most upset about Trump winning,
right.
They could not have those people put 2 and 2 together and realize that the corporate media, removing everything else, if you had to pick one single greatest factor in Donald Trump becoming president, it would be the corporate media's relentless promotion of him, their relentless coverage of him. We have that tape of Les Moonves saying Trump is bad for the nation, but he's good for CBS. Right? This was their mentality. They were getting rich. They were getting rich off Donald Trump. They could not have their shit lib audience figure that out. So Russia. I mean, it's just one of the most incredible frauds ever committed on the public. So it was never about anything other than that. And I think most people understand that. What the precedent that the Trump prosecution did set is quite the opposite in regards to holding people accountable in a true sense. It's purely going to be partisan. I mean, the one party is going to go after whoever's in power, like a banana republic. And most of these guys are guilty of something. I mean, it's not that Trump wasn't guilty of anything. He wasn't guilty of most of what they went after him on. Joe Biden, I mean, this is a lot of the irony with Trump. You are going to promote Joe Biden as the answer to Trump's racism and not a worse product of a racist system than Donald Trump is. Trump actually undid some of Joe Biden's crime bill. Joe Biden wrote that shit with segregationists, and you're gonna put that forward as the person who's gonna clean up the system.
It's a crime bill that enforced draconian minimum sentencing beyond the judge's control for possession of
the kind of
drugs in
sentencing
far
his
smaller
fucking
quantities
son
than
would've
his son possesses them.
Exactly. His son would have been in prison for what, 20, 25 years under his father's crime bill if his last name wasn't Biden. So, people understand that this is all a sick joke, that the whole saving democracy thing is a sad, twisted punchline. But now, because of what they did with Trump, there was a kind of understanding in Washington, right? It was the Casablanca understanding. I had no idea gambling was going on in this establishment. Now, you made it acceptable to start going after your political enemies for their corruption. And given that everybody in that town pretty much is corrupt, there's nobody that you cannot go after. Would the Republicans have gone this hard at Joe Biden if they hadn't gone that hard at Trump? It's possible. You had the Whitewater shit back in the Clinton days. So maybe, but I think that what they did with Trump has made taking it all the way more permissible.
Yeah, I think there's probably a great deal of truth to that. All right, let's do some super chats before we wrap. Thanks you all for being here very much. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. 779 strong in here right now. Please hit that subscribe button, folks, so that you will catch us every time. We are changing our schedule up next month, starting next month, 3 weekly streams. Sunday night, Wednesday night, Friday morning.
We're kicking it up. We're going worldwide.
Going worldwide. We're doing the Friday morning streams because quite a few of our viewers are over in Europe and overseas, and so we would like for them to have a chance to tune in live as opposed to going on at midnight and 1 a.m. over there. But also, we want to get you guys when you're feeling well-rested at 9 a.m. and maybe catch some of the morning viewers, a little different crowd. Maybe we'll find some new people who catch us in the morning. You name it. Thanks for the $2. I'm late, but your radar was fire and funny. Thank you. Yeah, the radar went off well. We put that together really quickly. I mean, we wrote it, but we shot that. We recorded that like 5 o'clock and then had to edit it and get it together.
I got to fuck up a couple times, but then I pretty much had to do it.
You had to nail it. We're like, all right, we got to nail it.
Keaton had to go. He has children.
I had children I had to feed. Yep. Story of a dad. Mitchie B701, thanks for the $10. And the only way to hold these people accountable is if we, the public, get together and hold them accountable. But we're so damn busy fighting each other over mostly trivial issues that won't happen. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Philosophically, I think that's true. And, I think, stories, I mean, even you could even put this last one we just covered in this category, but particularly with the Norfolk Southern story, it is just a story of how stacked the deck really is and how difficult it is for ordinary people to get any wins in those times, in those kinds of situations. And yeah, I think mass politics is the only way to go. And I don't mean mass electoral politics necessarily, but yes, collective action for sure. Black Freud, thanks for the $10. Jordan has a provocative personality, which works well for an investigative reporter, not for making allies. As they say in AA, take what you need and leave the rest. His takes, not so much. Well, that was been my thing all along. That's what I said.
That's it.
I think I said that on the Patreon stream. Black Freud, I think you're a Patreon member, so I think you may have seen that. His strength is journalism. His strength is reporting. His strength is not takes, So
that's it. That's it. Just don't even do that shit, man.
I think maybe coming out of TYT, he kind of feels he has to do takes because that's kind of the space which he came out of. He kind of has to be Jenk half the time, sitting behind the desk, bloviating on topics. But in my opinion, that's just not his strength. And I think getting involved with that and then getting into these very personal feuds with people who are better versed in the issues that he's trying to fight them on, it creates problems.
Is often very unfair and very wrong about like our friends at RBN about what he's talking about in regards to what they do. Like, look, you're a reporter. Actually, that was something when I brought up Marianne Williamson, I didn't even realize he interviewed her. So
that's right. Yeah, he did.
So you're like this crackerjack reporter. You didn't know about 30 years of reporting on her abusing staff. Like, why didn't you know that before you did the interview?
Right. Serious people don't shop at Whole Foods.
Okay, so I'll answer that. And hey, man, I'm always honest. I don't shop at Whole Foods at all. I went to Whole Foods because we're doing this coffee contest. And I knew that they'd be the most likely place to have the widest range of what people were asking me to try. So I went there specifically for that. I don't shop there. I'm not fucking dropping $200 for a fucking gallon of milk and some carrots.
Yo, you know where I go now? Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is the shit. That place.
Yeah,
is awesome.
if there was a Trader Joe's up here, I would go. I mean, there are obviously a lot around the city, but they haven't brought one to Harlem yet.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, there's one up here in my neck of the woods. There wasn't one I lived in Newburgh. But yeah, man, I mean, you fill, 4 huge bags of groceries. So it's like $85. It's like that would cost you $200, even at like a price chop or something.
Right.
Crazy. Status quo, thumbs up. Jordan, thumbs down. Thank you, Jonathan Bustamante, for that simple review. Thank you. Made your point. Stockton Rush is the face of human suffering. Yeah.
The future will be Stockton Rush stamping on the face of humanity.
We have to keep that name. We have to remember that. We have to make a note of that because remember last year at the end of the year, our year-end show, we gave the yearly awards, the winner of the year, the loser of the year, to this, to that. We got to have some award for Stockton Rush. He's got to win something.
He's got to win something, yeah.
I mean, he's one of the most notable names.
This is going to be the first year we get to go back and look at our predictions.
Yeah.
It's the first year we did predictions.
Indeed. See how they worked out. Deanne Simone, thank you for the $2. Add this to the coffee fund. Love your guys' work. Well, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. We appreciate that. Axel, thanks for the $5. Remember that Garland was supposed to be a justice had the R's not stonewalled Barry O. Of course, he's on the take. Yeah, I mean, that is interesting. I mean, I think when you say he's on the take, I think he's doing the bidding of his boss much in the way that most attorney generals would. Like, I don't know if he's particularly corrupt, but I thought, when they gave him that job, I thought, first of all, these are the people who assured us that the adults were taking charge again. Like, you pick Merrick Garland. This is not to say he's not qualified, but you clearly did that as an own. You clearly did that to troll the conservatives.
Republicans, sure.
And, I mean, how serious is that, right? How grown up is that? You're going to give this guy the job, the top lawyer, the top prosecutor in the country as what? An own to Fox News, right? That doesn't seem very mature to me. Spring Texan, thanks for the $1. Appreciate that. Quintessential. I don't know what HK is. What is that? But we got 25 of them, whatever they are.
Hong Kong?
Maybe. Is there one district, and thank you for the donation.
We've got a smart audience. Does anybody know?
Yeah, they probably know. Our audience is smarter than us.
Somebody will know.
Yeah. Is there one district for the U.S. House
that's
of
why
Reps?
They come here to feel superior.
Yeah, exactly. Where Corbyn, for example, could run as an independent and win. If not, the American left is going to be in trouble. Is there any district where Corbyn can run as an independent? I don't think there's any district where anybody could run as an independent and win, to be honest with you. Unfortunately. But, look, that's an interesting question. I don't think so, unfortunately. And so the left is going to be in trouble. Yeah, no, I think the left is in quite a bit of trouble.
Well,
that's accurate.
It's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, right.
Things are going so well now.
Beat you to it, my friend. Jessica, thanks for the chat here. If you have time, what's the matter with Delaware? Former Financial Times reporter Hal Weitzman explores the tiny state's massive role in global financial secrecy. Interesting. I will look into that.
Keep that up. Keep that up. All right. I took a picture of it. I will read it.
Perfect. Beautiful. Excellent. And last super chat looks like of the night here from Jonathan Bustamante. Thanks for the $5. When the son of POTUS enjoys special treatment, it becomes public interest. Stop the gaslighting. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, that is an angle that they really can't escape.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah, that's
it's
an
a
angle they
personal
can't
matter
escape.
because they were asking him. We didn't play that part. The first thing they were asking is because he was at a state dinner the night before. Would you normally invite someone who just took a plea deal with the Justice Department to a state dinner? She was like, well, that's his son. And then later in this, they start asking about the WhatsApp thing. And yeah, she just kept falling back on that line. That's a family matter. I refer you to the Justice Department.
Right.
And...
Yeah, no comment. Exactly. All right. I have one more private chat from Justin, our patron caller. Why not convince, American conservatives that we need public health care? Conservatives are the only political force in America to achieve any goals. Yeah, a good point. Well, this is this is what people talk about when they talk about, some people who are more cynical about this call it horseshoe theory, you're far left uniting with far right. But really, I mean, what you're really talking about is a class-based organization as opposed to a, sort of theory-based organization based on where you fall on the spectrum, right? Put interests above ideology, right? And I think that is very good advice. All right, folks, we are going to wrap. Thank you very much. Crack 3 hours once again.
Look at that. That was for us. That was a tight show.
That was a tight show, indeed. We will be back here Thursday night at 8 p.m. with our friend Craig Pasta Jardula.
We tend to talk a lot because we're
K-O-O.
Yeah, right.
I had a lot of requests for that in the chat.
Oh, the drop? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Made people happy before they left. But yeah, we will be back with our friend Craig Pasta Jardula this Thursday at 8 o'clock. That is our final regularly scheduled Thursday night stream. We will be switching to Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays past that point. And so we hope that you will all adjust to that new schedule well. It should be a lot of fun. Cyrus making it rain before the buzzer there. Got that shot in before the buzzer. Thank you, Cyrus. We appreciate that.
I gotta find his personal sound drop.
Oh, yeah.
He's got oh, there we go.
There you go. There you go. Beautiful, Cyrus. That qualifies for a singing bowl, but we're going to do the singing bowl anyway right now because this is the end
So
the program.
I'll make it like a special one.
A special one. All right, folks. Well, we appreciate you all being here. We will be back here Thursday night. Thursday night, we're splitting the show up. First half will be on YouTube. Second half will be on Rumble. Go to rumble.com, type in DueDissidence, and hit the follow button so you are subscribed so you don't miss us on Thursday. That's important. Make sure you go over there and do that. Check us out at patreon.com.
We have been working our butts off to read through the RFK book and to do background research so we can speak on it knowledgeably but obviously that is not something we can do here. So a lot of you have asked us for a while now to read that book.
Right. So you're going to want to catch it. So make sure you head over to Rumble, hit that subscribe button. We'll do half the show here Thursday, post game on Rumble on Thursday. Go to patreon.com/DueDissidence to help support the show. DueDissidence.substack.com. It is free. It's important to do that too, because you will get all the links to our live stream. So especially on Thursday, where we're kind of doing a double header, you'll get both of those links on Substack, and you can subscribe for free. If you can become a paid subscriber there, it's great. You don't have to. You can join the email list through Substack for free. Please do that. In any case, we will see you back here Thursday night, 8 p.m. Thank you very much for watching this evening. Until we see you Thursday, please do be safe and be well.
Can you dig it?
Please clap.